Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. Glad to be with you once again. We're going to do our best to keep you informed and entertained for the middle part of your day here on ESPN 792 on FM. As always, the show is brought to you by our friends at Les Schwab Tires. They got tires, wheels, accessories for whatever it is you're driving right now, for whatever it is you're towing right now. It's getting to be that time of year as well. Stop by Les Schwab Tires. The pros there are going to get the job done right the first time. And they've got locations all up and down the Wasatch Front, so you are covered no matter what. How stitious are you feeling today? James Peterson is behind the glass producing, as is mostly the case. Are you a little stitious? Are you superstitious? Are you moderate stitious, James Peterson?
I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. Shout out to Michael Scott, and great reference by you. I'm not very stitious at all. I'll say that. I do not subscribe to the belief that because one completely unrelated thing happened one way, the other completely unrelated thing can't happen that same way.
And I'm asking this question because the Smith Entertainment Group, Ryan Smith, the Utah and Salt Lake City sports communities are experiencing two lotteries within a week of one another. We know the NBA draft lottery is coming up, 6 days from now? We know that last night.
6 days, 8 hours, and how many seconds?
The countdown to the draft lottery. And we know that the NHL draft lottery happened on ESPN last night. And we talked about it a little bit on the show yesterday. You know what? They got the Utah Hockey Club, soon to be Mammoth, we believe, has about a 94% chance that they're going to be picking number 14. And a lot of the conversation was geared around like the value you're looking for at number 14, what it's going to be like when you're in this strange place where you're competitive but not playoff competitive. You're not able to add, through the draft at least, a ton of value unless you package assets and you move up in the draft. Is there any player worth that in this year's draft? And guess what? All of that conversation, that 15 minutes of show, like most 15-minute segments of the show, was completely worthless.
Throw it away.
Throw it away. Didn't mean anything because the Utah Hockey Club, under NHL rules, your upward mobility in the draft lottery is capped at 10 spots. You can't go 10 picks higher, or you can go 10 picks higher. You can't go 11. There was no chance that the Utah Hockey Club was going to pick number 1, 2, or 3. There was a roughly 3% chance that they were going to be able to pick number 4 in the NHL draft. And lo and behold, James Peterson, the hockey gods smileth upon Salt Lake City, and the number 4 pick goes to the Utah Hockey Club in the upcoming NHL draft.
Let's go.
Yes! Now, if you're a hockey club fan, if you're a hockey club season ticket holder, if you are only a hockey club insider, you're rejoicing. We're going to speak with Belle Fraser on the show today. She's probably pumped about this. It's a much more interesting pick at number 4. If you're Bear Tournier, if you're Bill Armstrong, you're looking at this and you're saying, I thought we were going to be at 14. At 4, there's a bunch of really good players in this draft. At 4, we could grab one of those guys. We might have an either immediate impact player or someone that will be part of our pipeline in the next 2-3 years as we're really rounding into playoff form. This is a perfect scenario. If you're Ryan Smith, I need to know how you're feeling today. How superstitious are you? Jazz fans, Jazz owner, Jazz coach Will Hardy, congrats on the extension. He's celebrating that. He's just like, whoo, man, I'm having a couple dirty Diet Cokes to celebrate this extension. And then he looks and goes,
he's fully Utah now.
Wait a second. The hockey club they moved up 10 spots in the draft? Now, maybe you think these two things are unrelated because scientifically they are. I'm more superstitious than that.
Yeah. And listen, the guys who work for the team, the guy who owns the team, Ryan Smith, I would not be surprised if this makes him more nervous. And maybe not necessarily out of superstition, but just because he's in it and it matters. It affects him and affects the people working way more than it affects us talking about it.
Sure.
And the fans who care a lot about, put a lot of emotional investment in it. Spence Checketts talks about that all the time. He has a unique experience of his dad being a sports executive. He talks about outcomes of games affected dinner at his household with the Knicks and the Rangers. Yeah.
So dinner last night at the Smith Entertainment Group collective households, probably just like, oh, heck yeah, man. We weren't even thinking about this. We weren't banking on this. The team's already pretty good. We don't desperately need this number 4, but we're very, very happy to have it. And then you're like, wait, this isn't gonna incur the wrath of any kind of sports god, and make it so that the Jazz can't get Cooper Flagg, right? We're not going to get the inverse. We're not going to get the opposite on this. And I know I'm acknowledging for all of you sports fans out there that scientifically these two things are completely unrelated. But part of being a sports fan is you're not always rational. You're not always logical. In fact, most of the time you're not at all. And you're just like, now you're hoping that lightning strikes twice for Utah, for Salt Lake City. And by the way, the lightning strike that you're hoping for next Monday is far more significant.
Absolutely.
Far more meaningful than the one that hit last night.
And that's part of what makes being a fan a lot of fun, right? When you put superstition into something that really has nothing to do with that scientifically, like you say. So pull out your favorite Lucky Charm cereal or otherwise.
Eat your Lucky Charms. Find a horseshoe, rabbit's foot,
whatever.
Hard stars and horseshoes, clovers and blue moons, pots of gold, rainbow. Whatever.
Let it affect your day in a similar way as it affects the people who work for these teams' days, if you so choose. But to be the voice of reason on things, if it doesn't turn out that way, the two things didn't have anything to do with each other, so it's okay.
So this, to me, if I'm trying to put it in like a lottery, because these are actual draft lotteries, right? It's like if you are playing sometimes you walk up to the 7-Eleven in Nevada or in California or wherever they have a lottery, and you see
head up to Evanston,
those little glowing signs in the window, and it's like the Powerball jackpot is like $480 million. And then there's the other one next to it, whatever that one's called, like the Mega Money Millions or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And that one's like $40 million. And you're just like, oh, might as well play both. Cool. So this
only cost me $1, whatever.
So this feels like you went and you played both, and the drawing for the small pot came up and you hit. You won. You got your 40. And you're like, well, this means I'm definitely not getting the 450.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
It's like, because it's like, it's great. It's awesome. And obviously that's a pretty bad analogy because $40 million changes your life. And a number 4 pick in the NHL draft probably doesn't. But it just feels like the magnitude, right? Like Cooper Flagg is 10X. Not just from like a production perspective, because we don't know. We don't know if he's going to be a great NBA player. But just from a perception, he feels like the white whale. This is the NBA Moby Dick that everyone is just like, please let us get this. And in the NHL, you don't even know who the number 4 prospect is. You don't, right? You know who the number 4 prospect is right now in the NBA because you're watching college basketball, and those guys, thankfully, this year came out of college basketball instead of the international market for the most part. In hockey, nobody is watching Canadian juniors. Nobody's watching the Ontario League. Nobody's like, oh, yeah, give me the next Macklin. I don't know who it is this year.
Yeah.
You don't, and that's fine, right? Like if we were in Boston or we were in Toronto, we probably would be better equipped to have that conversation. But we're here in Salt Lake City. And even though it's my job to know these types of things, I cannot tell you, obviously with the number 4 pick, now the Utah Hockey Club is going to go with fill in the blank. I'm bad at this. I probably should know. But, like, that's not what we do with hockey yet. So this is interesting for me because it is a massive stroke of good luck and positive fortune, moving up 10 spots, hitting. You had a far smaller chance of hitting on this number 4 pick in the NHL draft than the Utah Jazz have on hitting on the number 1 pick in the upcoming NBA. Like, percentage-wise, they tell you. Also, the San Jose Sharks got unlucky. Islanders.
Yes, the Islanders get the number 1 pick.
The Islanders jumped 10 picks, by the way, to get the number 1 pick. They should have been drafting 11. And they get number 1. And by the way, James, for those of you like me who are a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, do you know where one of the top 3 players in this year's draft, some people have pegged him as number 1? Do you know where that guy grew up and who he rooted for growing up?
The Sharks?
No.
Oh.
Happens to be a Boston College prospect that grew up on Long Island.
Oh, man.
Playing
BC, not BU.
I think it is BC, yeah.
Interesting. BU's the hockey power.
Right.
Right? That's interesting.
I could be wrong on that. I was wrong yesterday. I think I said
one of the Boston universities, but maybe not Boston University.
Well, Belle Frazier's going to be so mad if I gave Boston College credit for a prospect that belongs to the Terriers.
She's going to cancel. She's going to cancel her
She'd
hit.
be like, you got that wrong.
And by the way, one of the reasons why we have people like Belle Fraser on the show today is to fill in the holes that you're talking about. Someone like her actually does pay attention to she does that part of her job, pays attention to the junior leagues and stuff to see who might be available at 4 for Utah Hockey Club. So that's something we'll definitely talk with her about at 1 o'clock.
So forgive me for not having watched a lot of Erie Otters play.
Oh, you don't know the Otters?
I'm not really. I'm not super well versed in the Otters and Matthew Schaefer. I have not been paying attention to the Saginaw Spirit and their center prospect Michael Misa.
Saginaw and Erie.
James Hagans. This is the kid we're talking about. He is a Boston College guy.
BC. Wow. So Bell's not going to want to talk to him at all. That's a rival. Talk about him at all.
James Hagans is the guy he grew up on Long Island, and now the Islanders. They might not draft him just because, to fill out that story, because he's not a consensus number 1 overall pick.
It's not like last year with Macklin Celebrini then, where it's a no. You don't have a surefire number 1 pick. Gotcha.
But this kid, he grew up playing. His youth team was the Long Island Royals. How do you say this word? Haupauge. Haupauga?
Haupauga, maybe.
Haupauga, New York. Man, it's on Long Island. That's where he's from.
Some of those upstate New York / Long Island names, basically everything but New York City. Like Poughkeepsie is another one. You see it spelled out. You're like Poughkeepsie. Poughkeepsie. Like some of those are just. What is going on here? A lot of them are Native American, right? But wow, yeah.
James Hagans. I've never seen this kid play skate a shift of hockey. Okay, so I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert here, but he grew up. Macklin Celebrini. His dad worked for the Sharks.
Yes,
when he was a kid.
That was kind of full circle. He's Canadian.
Yes,
right, like most great hockey players, but his dad worked for the Sharks, so that almost felt like a homecoming for him.
As a kid, he probably skated on Sharks ice when he was a kid. You know what I mean?
Definitely grew up a Sharks fan,
and
because of that.
This James Hagans guy, who's considered one of the top 3 prospects here, grew up playing for a Long Island youth team in Detroit, and there's seafood being thrown onto the ice. All right? Little fishy, maybe.
Little fishy.
I cannot tell you how much I loved seeing the Utah Hockey Club move all the way up, because I'm like, oh, this is right in my wheelhouse, man. This is the stuff, because I'm like, I refuse to accept that it happens in a vacuum. I refuse to accept that, all right, yeah, well.
Too conspiratorial.
And you know what? Maybe I should be thinking about it the other way, that the sports gods, not just the hockey gods, are smiling upon Utah now. And now it is time. Now
be positive for once.
Now Salt Lake City finally gets its comeuppance. Comeuppance is a bad thing. Finally gets its moment in the sun.
Yeah, there you go.
And you're going to get both. Yeah, you're going to draft.
The big markets are getting their comeuppance.
Yeah,
what's happening.
That's what we're talking about. Yeah. That's right.
Big hockey, big basketball.
Anton Frondell or Peter Martoni are coming to Salt Lake City to play for the Utah Hockey Club, and so is Cooper Flagg. And they're going to be roommates and best friends when they get here.
Absolutely.
Boom!
We'll talk more about the upcoming draft lottery. We got Gordy Chiesa first off.
That's right. Gordy's joining us in just a couple of minutes here.
Andy Larson. So we'll have back-to-back basketball guests. Andy's going to be in the room when they draw the lottery.
More affectionately known on this show as Andy Blarson.
Yes, Mr. Blarson.
With Gordy, we have a lot to talk about. Especially, I want to talk about the closing sequence for the Denver Nuggets last night.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watch. Do you watch this game?
I fell asleep before the ending. I'm kicking myself.
No, it's fine because you could catch the highlight.
Yeah.
So look, it was a great back and forth, and it was that those final 60 seconds ended up taking 5 minutes because of the fouling and the free throws and the timeouts and all that kind of stuff.
OKC got cute fouling instead of letting stuff play out, which is the norm now, and it usually works for the team that's up. It didn't work for them this time.
And Aaron Gordon on a missed free throw, he just pass blocks. He pass blocks Caruso out of the lane. He literally grabs him and he frames his hands on the inside and just shuffles his feet like he's an offensive tackle. Just scoops Caruso out of the lane.
So not quite the Malone bear hug on Barkley, but close.
It's almost that. And an offensive lineman, if Jeff Schwartz is listening, he's probably so upset because it would have been a hold because his hands were outside the frame on at least part of it. And Caruso just kind of uh-oh, it's happening, and just gets walked out of there, which you probably don't have a choice because Gordon's a pretty big guy. And then he just takes off up court. And by the way, the Nuggets almost squandered the rebound thinking somebody else was going to get it. It was almost a bystander effect. And then,
campfire, as they like to say in volleyball.
But he just gets walked out of the lane, and then up the left side of the court, Gordon wide open by himself, all alone. Russell Westbrook, of all people, hits the open man, three-pointer. Everybody goes nuts. And Denver, the Denver team that fired its head coach and GM a week ahead of the playoffs, now has the upper hand on Oklahoma City, the best team in the West. Whoa!
It's insane. Trey Fitzgerald was in studio with Spence Checketts. Shout out to Trey. You know how big a Denver Nuggets fan he is, OC. He's wearing his Nuggets gear. And I was like, how in the world do you fire your head coach days before the season's over and win a playoff series? And now they've taken a step further and taken a lead on the number one seed in the second round.
It's because Jokic is the MVP this year and the MVP of the world. It's insane. We'll talk with Gordy about all of this. Sean O'Connell Show on a Tuesday, ESPN 792.1 FM. We're just getting started. Stick with us on Utah's number one sports talk.
Scott, can you hear me? Hey, Scott, can you hear me?
Welcome back to ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Gordy Chase is going to join us in a matter of moments. Scott Mitchell did the down and dirty from Belliston Jewelers up in Ogden today, just off Harrison Boulevard, right in the shadow of Weber State University. Great location, unbelievable setup, crazy options for anyone looking for jewelry as a perfect gift for the rapidly approaching Mother's Day. And Scott's still up there hanging out, trying to get you to come by, take advantage of the great deals. Let's check in with Scott Mitchell. Scott, how are you?
Doing great, Sean. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you great. I hear you wonderfully.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Yes, we're up here at Belliston Jewelers in Ogden, 36th Street and Harrison Boulevard, just west of Weber State, right? I'm here with Sydney. They've been enlightening me on the gamut of the jewelry business. It's fascinating. As you mentioned, Mother's Day is coming up. It is the season for engagement and graduation. So great gift options, any budget. But Sydney wants to talk about a special kind of diamond, right? So diamonds aren't necessarily all the same. They're not. Tell me, Sydney, enlighten us all about diamonds.
So there's different cuts, different clarities, obviously different sizes that people are usually aware of. And we have tons of diamonds to choose from here. But we also carry what's called a lab diamond.
Yes.
Lab diamonds are pretty cool. A lot of people get confused with lab diamonds. They think they're fake. They're real diamonds. They're grown in a lab, but it's the same chemical makeup as a lab diamond. And they're quite a bit cheaper in price to buy.
So you have some prices for us.
I do. So
what's the difference?
So we are about half of what our competitors are.
Oh, for the lab diamonds.
Just for a lab diamond.
Oh, and lab diamonds are how much less than actual diamonds?
Lab diamonds are probably, well, just to give you an example, yeah, I guess for a 1 carat lab diamond, we're at about $586 for that.
Right.
Competitor prices for about the same diamond, they're over $1,000. If you were to get a natural diamond, in that same size, you're just over 4,000.
Oh my goodness! So that's a massive difference. I mean, between $500 to $4,000, huge difference, and you can't tell the difference, right?
Right.
I mean, lab diamonds are a girl's best friend.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that fair to say?
So another cool thing with lab diamonds, I guess, is that there's usually less flaws. In a lab diamond, because it's in more of a controlled environment and how it's grown and all of the things versus a natural diamond from the earth.
So lab diamonds are a great option, and they incredible prices, the look, the durability. I mean, it's all they're absolutely beautiful.
Yeah,
I'm actually familiar with lab diamonds, and I'm actually a fan. So I love it. Anyways, that's what's going on here, Sean. We're at Belliston Jewelry, and Sydney and Joe are amazing. They've got an amazing store here. Really, you got to come in. Great options for anything you need. You mentioned Mother's Day, graduation, of course. That engagement season is right around the corner. So they also have a budget for everyone, just so you know. So they got quality prices, quality products, and they got a really cool line of their own you want to check out. So that's my report from there, Sean. Back to you.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks to the folks up at Belliston for hooking all of our listeners up with great Mother's Day deals. The jewelry is fantastic. The selection's incredible. They have so many different options. Go check them out before Mother's Day. I forgot that I have a ring up there. I took a ring back up there to get cleaned. I forgot to tell Scott to bring it back down with them. Anyway, all right. Gordy Chiesa, our NBA guru, is kind enough to join us, talk some NBA playoffs, upcoming NBA draft lottery, all that stuff. He's here with us now. Gordy, how are you? Gordy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay, now I can hear you. My apologies. Technical difficulty real quick there. Gordy, I want to get into the feeling in a building when we're this close to an NBA draft lottery, but I want to start with the playoff games we saw last night, and specifically the buzzer beater, the Aaron Gordon buzzer beater, as Denver goes up a game over Oklahoma City. The closing, minute or two of that game, it was long, and there was the fouling back and forth and the free throw shots and all that stuff. Was there anything from a coaching perspective that could have been handled differently by OKC in order for an outcome to potentially be different?
Yes, they fouled way too soon all the time versus letting the ball roll down the floor and then play the foul game. But last night's game showed there was one for the ages. It was more that the Nuggets refused to lose, and that was the most impressive thing about it. So technically there were some errors of judgment by the Thunder. Let's not forget, they haven't played in 8 days, while the weary Nuggets had an unbelievable win on Saturday night, and then they had to play right away on Monday night. But they showed their grit. And so they fouled a little bit too early, and that gave the Nuggets a chance to almost strike with a dead ball. And obviously the two missed foul shots by Chet Holmgren, that determined part of the game. But the biggest factor was this Nikola Jokic, his brilliance during that whole game. It was record-setting performance: 42 points, 22 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 blocks, and he was only one of 4 players in the history of the NBA playoff to ever do that. Wilt did it twice, Giannis did it once, and Shaq did it as far as those historic numbers. Last play of the game, misses both foul shots. They don't panic. They come down the floor. Tough rebound by Christian Brown. Throws an outlet pass to Russell Westbrook, who could have drove to the basket, but he throws a rocket laser pass on time, in rhythm, to Aaron Gordon, and he knocks it home. It was a fantastic win for the Thunder. Now let's see, Sean, what they're made out of. The regular season, they were 68-14. They had a first-round breeze, 4 games to 0. Now it comes the real playoffs.
The fact that it's Russell Westbrook, who, look, we've seen him make the wrong play several times, and especially when he could have that hero moment there and go to the basket. What does it say about his fit in this playoff series, that he recognized the pass was the better option there?
that Jokic is the main guy in the whole process. So a lot of times with guys like Russell Westbrook, that they want to be the focal point, and parts of their career they were. But in this situation with the Nuggets, the roles are absolutely unequivocally defined. That the number one dog is Nikola Jokic, and number two is Jamal Murray, and number three is Aaron Gordon. So with that said, the chemistry is very strong, and Westbrook is willing to accept and excel in his role, and he certainly has. Without Westbrook, the Nuggets wouldn't advance in the first round, and now already in Game 1, they were able to knock out the Thunder. So Russell Westbrook did a fantastic job. Off the bench last night, 18 points, but it's when he got them, and that's very impressive. Sean, last point about the game last night as far as what happened was that, oh, by the way, that the Nuggets punked the Thunder on the boards 63-43. So you and I have talked about this many, many times on the phone in the studio about rebounding. It's absolutely critical, plus 20 for the Nuggets. And then the second part of that was that offensive boards, 13-8. So the differential, they got so many more do-overs, and that's the margin of error.
Gordy Chase, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 792 FM, NBA playoffs underway. We know that the NBA world and the game of basketball in general has moved further and further toward the three-point shot. The Celtics missed 45 three-pointers in a loss to the Knicks. Big comeback for New York, and obviously that's a great story. But, Gordy, 45 attempts is insane. 45 misses is even crazier. What happened for the Celtics?
Yeah, they go 50 for 60. So he took 60 shots and missed 45, and that was an NBA record for the most missed three-point shots in playoff history. Now, they're first in the NBA. The Celtics were a regular season of attempting three-point shots, but taking 60, which indicates then that they have no at all presence as far as below the foul line extended. Now, I'm not talking about old school post up, mid post, back down, dribble, jump hook. I'm talking about getting in the paint. And so they relied exclusively on the 3-point missile, and they absolutely misfired. And so they've got to figure out, how do you take 3-point shots? And that's what that's your team is focused on, but it's when you take them. When you keep missing like that, you have to mentally adjust your game and catch and go drive and get something to the top of the basket. It might be a layup, might be a foul, and it might be an old school pull-up jumper, but you just can't shoot a stationary swing past his 3-point shots. And that was a huge factor in the Knicks. The Knicks, again, very similar to the Thunder. They showed their grit. Yes, the Celtics have more players and a better depth, but the Knicks have this rock-solid defense, and in Jalen Brunson, they have the winner of the Clutch Player of the Year. He gets 29 points. The game was in overtime. You get the feeling that him and OG Anunoby, again, they refused to lose the game, and that's why they knocked him out. So the playoffs so far have been fantastic. Sean, let's point about, just generally speaking, about the playoffs. Do we realize that in the last 3 playoff games that the visiting team has won? So the Knicks win last night in Boston. Last night, the Nuggets win at OKC. And on Sunday, that the Pacers win in Cleveland. So this shows you how good these teams are and how there's nothing regular about the postseason, that it's a mano a mano, and that the better players step up and collectively group. Most teams that do win, they refuse to lose.
Gordy, I hope you'll forgive me for my fixation on that 45 missed threes by the Celtics. 60 3-point attempts. I was like, okay, that's absolutely nuts. How much has basketball changed? So I decided to look back at the Jazz glory days. And will you indulge me in this exercise, Gordy? Is this okay for me to walk you down memory lane here? So,
of course.
1998,
Yep.
The conference semifinals, so second round of the playoffs, the Utah Jazz played against the San Antonio Spurs in game one, as you're well aware. Okay?
Yes.
This was same day. We're talking about a game that happened May 5th, 2025. Now I'm referencing a game that happened May 5th, 1998. San Antonio loses to the Utah Jazz 82-83. You remember it well, I'm sure.
Yes, I do.
The Boston,
that was Tim Duncan's rookie season.
Yes, okay. So the Boston Celtics, in a loss, attempted 63 pointers against the Knicks, right? Do you know how many off the top of your head? I love testing your knowledge here, Gordy. Can you make a wild guess for me how many three-point shots the San Antonio Spurs attempted in their game one, round two loss, May 5th, 1998 against the Utah Jazz?
12.
Will you be shocked when I tell you that they attempted 5?
Okay. No, I'm not.
One,
No.
And I know that Spurs team especially was not particularly reliant on the three-point shot. So even for that era, they probably weren't shooting as many threes with the huge lineup they had with Tim Duncan and David Robinson, Will Perdue. They weren't like killer shooters necessarily. 1 for 5 for the game. That's less than a quarter in today's basketball. And by the way, the Jazz in the win were 3 of 9 from beyond the arc. Jeff Hornacek hit 1, John Stockton hit 1, and Chris Morris hit 1 off the bench. That's how different playoff basketball is now than what it was. And I just felt a wild hair. Let me go look up a second round series from back in the Jazz glory days and see what kind of shots they were attempting. And obviously the numbers are so drastically different.
Thank you. Thanks for memory lane. Let's add to that was that we can thank Stephen Curry for the evolution of this. The Splash Brothers, meaning Steph and also Klay Thompson. And that the NBA wanted more of a finesse game, that the TV partners will say, give or take, roughly around 2010, there was way too much physicality in the regular season and God forbid, even in the playoffs. And so they tried to, quote, making more of a free-flowing, more of a cutting, more of a visual game, and they succeeded in that. So as always, is that now it's two extremes. The better teams use the three-point shots selectively, and it goes in, versus just relying on it all the time. Defensively, you have the ability to guard the three-point line, which means that you've got to stay at home. So in recent Jazz basketball in the playoffs, when the Jazz had Joe Ingles, knockdown shooter, when they had a young Donovan Mitchell, when they had Bojan Bogdanovic, when the Jazz lost in those playoff series, is because the defense, Sean, didn't lead those guys. And that's why it's so important that besides having shooting ability, you also have a cutting component. Without cutting in a game, your three-point shot is negated because the defense is, we call it simply, they're staying at home on you. When I coached Ray Allen, the second greatest shooter of all time, when I had him with Seattle, I said to him all the time that we'll never let you just space out in the corner to be guarded, that we're going to move you around. He used to always say to me, thank you, I appreciate it, because if I'm in the corner, stuck in the corner, that means what? I can't help my team win. Well said.
Gordy, what's the feeling like in a front office, in a locker room, in the building right now as the Jazz are, waiting with bated breath to see where the lottery comes out? I know that this is something they've been thinking about and preparing for a while, but it's getting closer now. Christmas is around the corner, except you're not sure it's going to feel like Christmas. So give me a sense of what the conversations and the feeling is like right now in that building.
Okay. Do you believe in good luck charms, Sean?
I do. I'm pretty superstitious, Gordy. So yeah, I'm throwing salt and I'm rubbing rabbits' feet and I'm doing everything.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's what most Jazz fans are doing, including you and I. However, in the front office, that they're getting ready for the combine, which starts in Chicago next Sunday, and that the next day's a lottery on the 12th. So they're going to be ready to interview and have the have players work out in front of them. So this week they are watching films. They're trying to get their board, as far as the draft board, which they perceive at that moment where teams are going to be drafting, and they'll know for certain as far as the order of the draft. So for the listeners right now on ESPN Radio 700, next Monday is the top 13 players as far as draft order will be selected, and then the players will be filled in as far as on the draft boards how the competition thinks how they might be drafting players, and it never truly holds up to that as far as, because you might like a player, but another team does not like it as much as you do. So everyone is just waiting, but right now they're orderly getting fashion. There's nothing like the draft system, and in Jazz basketball, this might be the most important May 12th in the history of the franchise, of where they're picking. What the Jazz could pick one, or the worst pick could be as far as 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The Jazz are going to get a major young talent, probably 19 and or 20 years old, and that guy will attempt to be a franchise type player. It's exciting for all the Jazz fans. It's exciting. The Jazz have to hit this pick correctly. Now, speaking of the lottery, though, but do you realize that that the most points in this year's playoffs, only one player was a first-round draft pick. So, Sean, here we are talking about the draft lottery. The playoffs right now, only one first-round pick of the top 3 scorers in this year's playoffs. Jalen Brunson leads the NBA in playoff scoring this year, 218 points. He was the 33rd pick of the 2018 draft. Nikolai Jokic, are you kidding me? He scored 2010 tallies this postseason. He was the 41st pick of the 2014 draft, and then the third most highest scorer in this year's playoffs is Jamal Murray. He's the only guy picked in the first round in the top 3 scorers with 181 scores. He was the 7th pick in 2016. So it seems to you and I, Sean, that picking in high in the lottery is really a major accomplishment, but it doesn't mean that if you don't pick in the lottery that the guys you take aren't good, thus the top 3 scorers in the playoffs.
Is that your list today, Gordy? What do you have for your list?
My list today quickly is that the most NBA titles by a franchise, I cut it off at 3. So as the Jazz are trying to get their first franchise title someday, hope it's in the future, here's only 8 franchises. With 3 NBA titles, the Miami Heat. With 3, Detroit/Fort Wayne Pistons, 3 NBA titles. The Philadelphia 76ers/Warriors/Syracuse Nationals have 3 NBA titles. With 5, the San Antonio Spurs with 5 titles. The most recent one was 2014. With 5, trying to get 6 this year, is the Golden State/Philadelphia Warriors with 5. The most recent was 2022. The third all-time franchise with most NBA titles is Chicago Bulls with 6. We all know about them. The most recent one was 1998. The second greatest franchise as far as titles is the LA/Minneapolis Lakers with 17. The most recent one was 2020 in the bubble. And the number 1 leader in the history of NBA basketball for the most NBA championships is the Boston Celtics with 18. The most recent one was last year in 2024. Quickly. The following teams have never won an NBA championship. They are the Brooklyn Nets, the Charlotte Hornets, Indiana Pacers, LA Clippers, Memphis Grizzlies, Minnesota T-Wolves, New Orleans Pelicans, Orlando Magic, Phoenix Suns, and last but not least, the Utah Jazz. Thus, that's my list of the title winners.
Gordy, you're the man. Appreciate you as always. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Sean. Peace out.
Great stuff from Gordy Chiesa, as is always the case. All right, more and more rain. Hopefully, you're not experiencing any leaks inside of your house, because your roof is the most important part of the house. It protects everything under the roof. You know who you can trust with everything under the roof? Because they're the ones who will fix your roof, install your roof, replace your roof. Our friends at Top Local Roofing. Justin Cunningham, Eugene and Company, 801-839-4501. That's the roofing company you can trust. Membrane roof, shingle roof, metal roof, additions, new construction. They'll take care of all of it. And trust me, you do not want to find out during a spring rainstorm or during a spring thaw when the ice comes off the roof or whatever that there's a little issue, because that means water ruining the stuff, the sheetrock, the furniture, the flooring inside the house. Get it fixed before it becomes a real problem. Call Top Local Roofing at 801-839-4501. Right now, 50% off high-quality seamless gutters if you replace your roof with Top Quality Roofing. 801-839-4501. Tell them OC sent you. Hot Lunch is next. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
Mitchell Robinson will be on the ball. White will inbound. It's off to Brown. Bridges there. They hold it. They trample. It's over. The Knicks have won. What a comeback and a Game 1 win for New York.
The Knicks at one point trailed by 20. Big time comeback. Bridges with the game sealing steal. Kevin Harlan on the call. That sound courtesy of TNT Sports. Knicks Game 1 win over the Celtics. Real quick before we get to Scott Mitchell, James, I gave Gordy a little walk down memory lane, a little trivia question, right? The Game 1 loss back in 1998, Jazz Glory Days. I went all the way back. The Spurs only attempted 5 3-point shots. The Celtics last night against the Knicks attempted 60 and missed 45 of those.
They made 15, which is really good
Pretty
for
awesome.
a single game. That's close to an average, the highest average in the league in the regular season.
That's 45 points off of threes.
And they still missed 45. Like they made 15 and shot 25%. Insane.
If you would have made all those threes, you'd have scored 180 points. All right. But hold on. I need you to stay on for one more second here. I looked at the Game 1. San Antonio only attempted 5 3-pointers in that. And I was like, that's got to be an outlier. They were shooting more than 5 3-pointers. The whole series, the whole second-round series that the Jazz played the San Antonio Spurs, beat them 4-1. The most 3-point shots attempted by either team in that series in any single game was how many, do you think?
8?
It was 16.
16, okay.
16.
8.
The Celtics shot 60 last night.
I said I went really low because I know Jerry Sloan was not a not a 3-point guy. No one really was in that era.
That was the Spurs shooting 16 in Game 2. They made 5 of 16 in Game 2. The Jazz didn't shoot more than 12 in the whole series in a single game. Wild. Anyway, that's how much basketball has changed. Scott Mitchell's up at Belliston Jewelers. Mother's Day is coming. Scott, what do you have for us?
Hey, if I shot 60 3-pointers, I think I could make 15. That's what I think.
I would miss 58.
I mean, I do it for $2 million a year. I could do that. Like, I'll just shoot them up. Hey, we're here at Belliston Jewelers. They are off of Harrison Boulevard and 36th Street, just west of Weber State. Our favorite Weber State. Anyways, I'm here with Sydney, and as you mentioned, Mother's Day is coming up.
Yep.
And you have some really cool options for Mother's Day. Guys, listen, come in right now, beat the rush, because it's going to be insane on Saturday. So get in now. Tell us about your Mother's Day options that are unique and different.
So right now we have in store a lot of different necklaces that you can add pendants to. Probably a couple hundred different pendants that you can choose from that are just really, really cute, really fun. So that they can your significant other could kind of design their own necklace. We also have really cute stackable bracelets that have your traditional birthstones in them if you wanted to stack each one of your kids.
So they're really thin. You put them around your wrist. You stack them together to symbolize all your kids.
Yes.
Right. So and their birthstones.
Yes.
Right. So it's not just a Mother's Day ring with the birthstone. There's lots of you can get that. I mean, that's still an option. That's not the cool thing these days though, right? It's still in, but it's okay.
Yeah.
And then you have all these other amazing options.
Yeah. We also have a lot of different hoop earrings in.
Oh,
and those hoop earrings you can also put some of the pendants on those.
Oh, very cool. And hoop earrings are in.
Yes, very trendy.
All right. So a lot of great options, guys. Come on down. Belliston Jewelry here on Harrison Boulevard, 36th Street in Ogden. You don't want to wait till the rush, but we'll be back in a bit. There you go, Sean. This is what's happening up here.
Thank you to Scott Mitchell. Thank you to Belliston Jewelers. Go check it out. Great store, great people, great jewelry, and a great holiday coming up with Mother's Day on Sunday. You've already procrastinated long enough. Don't procrastinate any further, please. All right, NBA Draft Lottery is coming. Playoffs are happening right now. We'll talk about all of it with Andy Larson in 3 minutes on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. All right, Sean O'Connell Show, hour number 2. James just put this in my ear. I'm very excited about this. Eric Church is coming to the Delta Center October 23rd. Tickets go on sale Friday. Details are available at ESPN700sports.com. We're giving away a pair of tickets in 20 minutes. We're going to give away 2 Eric Church tickets to October 23rd show at the Delta Center. We'll make it 20 minutes from now. That's awesome. Looking forward to that. Also looking forward to a conversation with Andy Larson, friend of the show, friend of the program at this point. I affectionately refer to him as Andy Blarson because of the Twitter handle. Welcome, Andy. How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Doing all right. I started the show today like a 10-year-old, feeling superstitious and scared about the Jazz lottery chances because we saw in the NHL draft lottery yesterday 3% probabilities hit twice. Once for the Islanders to move from the 10th pick to the number 1 pick, and once for the Utah Hockey Club to go from number 14, their highest probability, all the way up to number 4 in the NHL draft lottery. And as it pertains to the Jazz, I was like, there's no way that the same ownership group, the same city, hits twice on lottery good fortune. But, of course, they should be unrelated. Walk me back off the ledge here, please.
Yeah, look, I'm going to be your math major expert here, right? Like,
okay.
That's where I'm coming from. These are independent trials. It's like flipping 2 different coins. You can get heads on both of them, right? So that's what I got. But I am going to Chicago for the lottery next week. So if you have any superstitious items you want me to bring, I'll throw something in my pocket for you.
Okay, I appreciate that. What is the mood? What is the sentiment, as far as you can tell, in the building, around the Jazz organization, as the lottery gets closer and closer? Are we dealing with optimism for the most part, where they're feeling the same way that I guess you are, that like, hey, it's just this is a coin flip, and we have the best odds for that coin to land in the right spot? Or is there some trepidation because obviously the Jazz moved down last year?
Yeah, look, I mean, they are much more likely to move down than they are to move up, right? Like, it is, I mean, they have the worst odds in the league, but it's 14% chance of the number 1 pick, and then 86% chance at 2 through 5, and almost a 50% chance at just falling all the way to that number 5 spot. So, you know, if you're flipping a coin here, the coin flip is the 50-50 odds are the number 5 pick versus everything else, 1 through 4. So I think that's important to kind of remember, is that, hey, the most likely outcome is 5th, and then anything above that is probably got to be considered a win. But look, in general, there's optimism. I think there's nerves. We got to talk to Will Hardy yesterday on the back of his extension, and I think he said he'll be in Chicago for the lottery and combine as well. And you know, these are the kind of moments that make or break franchises. I mean, we saw what happened with the San Antonio Spurs getting Tim Duncan in 1997, and how that turned that franchise around and you know, and made them as close to a dynasty as you know, reasonably you can ask for in the 2000s. And then obviously getting Wembanyama 2 years ago, kind of repeating history. You know, that doesn't happen if they don't end up with those kind of franchise players. And I think Cooper Flagg is clearly a franchise player in this draft, and everyone else is, you know, good, but not at that level. And, you know, maybe you could make a case Dylan Harper is close, but is not, you know, projected maybe to be an all-NBA kind of guy. So, yeah, this is really, really important. And it comes down to how air blows on a few ping pong balls over the course of 10 minutes.
Is that a good thing? Is this an adequate way of figuring out who gets the number 1 overall pick? And does, you know, I was just listening to you, and I don't disagree with anything you said. This is a massively important moment in franchise history, and some examples of where it worked out for other people. And there's probably a larger number of examples of where it didn't work out. And I'm like, but why is it left to chance like this? How did we come to this agreement?
I mean, do we want it to be that if you just straight tank, you get the number 1 pick? Because then there would have been a lot more teams tanking and a lot harder last year, right? Like, as shameless as the Jazz and other teams around the NBA tanked last year, it would have been a lot more cutthroat had, the number one pick been absolute for teams that don't have those chances. So, a few years ago, they flattened the lottery odds further. It used to be a 25% chance that the worst team got the number one overall pick. Now it's just the number 14 odds. Now it's that the top three, or I guess bottom three worst teams all have top odds at the number one pick. They all have a 14% chance. And, the idea is to disincentivize the ugly February, March, and April basketball we saw from the Jazz where they were trying to lose games. That being said, that clearly hasn't totally worked. So I think it's a fair question to ask, like, hey, can we do anything better here? But I'm not sure that there's any league that's really kind of figured this out. Especially, the hard part with basketball is one player can change everything in a way that, it's not quite the same in football or hockey or baseball. So it's hard to kind of compare that to. So if you've got a better idea for a better system, I'm all ears, and I'm sure Adam Silver would be too.
Well, I've put at least 30 seconds of thought into this, and I want to propose that, yes, you just go ahead and you give the best number one pick. You give the number one pick to the worst team, but you can't do it more than like once every 5 years. Like, you can have the number one pick if you're tanking, but you don't get it again the next year. You don't get, like, this. The San Jose Sharks had the worst record in the NHL 2 years in a row, even though they got the number one pick, and he ended up being a pretty good player. It didn't change the fortunes of the franchise. They went to that lottery system. They're not picking number one, whatever. But I don't know. I realize why it is different than the NFL, but it does work in the NFL. It's also a lot less tolerable to watch a team tank over 82 games than over 16 or 17 games. So I guess it's an apples and oranges thing there.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And then, so under that rule, then could the Jazz tank for Cooper Flag this year and then tank for AJ Devonta, the presumed number 2 pick next year? That's not
maybe
a lot better. A lot of thinking, So yeah, you gotta figure out like how that rule necessarily works, and then if there's a generational prospect coming in, a LeBron James or Victor Wembanyama, then you're going to see 10 teams really go for it. Like we saw teams tank out of the playoffs. I guess what was that 2 years ago? The Dallas Mavericks did. It's crazy. So I think. There are definitely ways to change the incentives around. I kind of like, frankly, the Boston Celtics assistant GM Mike Zarin put up the idea of the wheel, which is just like assigning teams picks years in advance. So next year, hey, the Jazz have the number 8 pick kind of no matter what. And then the year after that, they'll have the number 21 pick. And then the year after that, they'll have the number 3 pick. And then teams can trade and make plans. I don't think there's an easy solution. Talked to Larry Markkinen about this earlier this year, and he was like, what if you made teams, the first teams that missed the playoffs were less likely to make to get the number 1 overall pick. So you have to be at least competitive throughout most of the regular season. Maybe that's the way to go. I don't know. Like there's no easy way to do this, I don't think.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's an interesting idea from Lowry, by the way. Andy Larson is our guest, Utah Jazz NBA insider from the Salt Lake Tribune. You referenced the San Antonio Spurs a couple of times, and they are in a lot of ways kind of a standard that many teams in the NBA have attempted to follow. The Jazz have not been shy about taking the things they like from the Spurs model and trying to do those things. Obviously, the head coach, who you just extended, we'll get to that in a second, he comes from that system. And there was the announcement and then the presser where Greg Popovich is changing roles and he's going to be the team president now. And I thought it was really cool to see, Ginobili and Duncan and those guys there literally supporting him. I mean, hand on the shoulder kind of supporting him. And I wonder what you think the role actually is for Greg Popovich. What's he going to be like as a front office guy as opposed to a coach? Like, how do you see that playing out in San Antonio with Pop?
I think it's going to be really dependent on what the stroke allows him to do. I mean, to be quite frank, like it was pretty clear in yesterday's press conference that he is well short of 100%.
Yes.
And, I think that doesn't necessarily mean that the mind isn't there, right? But in terms of his ability to speak clearly, in terms of his ability to move, in terms of his ability to, have the energy it takes to scout players and make, player decisions, player personnel decisions, et cetera, that's probably beyond, if I'm honest, where it looked like he was right now. So if he is able to recover, and then, I think, he has gained enough franchise trust that, he can call the shots. He is El Jefe, as he put it. Famously, remember how Greg Popovich got his job as San Antonio head coach back in the mid-90s. He was the GM and hired himself to be head coach. So, this is not a new role for Popovich. He used to be a front office guy. So a return here does make sense kind of as he enters the later stage of his career. But, what he is actually able to do and what is just kind of a figurehead status is going to be up to the medical, reality of what the stroke means.
When you're the guy who follows the guy and you're 38 years old, what do you think that looks like?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? And there will be expectations on that job given who Victor Wembanyama is. And now they've gotten De'Aaron Fox. And so long as Wemby is able to get healthy from the blood clot issue, I would imagine that they continue to add players around those two guys that, can shoot, can defend, can play kind of, Spurs basketball, for lack of a better cliche. So, I think Mitch Johnson's pretty well respected both in that organization and around the league. Did not have a lot to work with at the end of the year with Wemby and those guys out. Stephon Castle, obviously Rookie of the Year, but needs to improve his efficiency and kind of show that he is a player who helps winning, not just a player who scores a lot of points. I don't want to be harsh on him. He defends well too, but the efficiency is a big question. I think they clearly need one or two more real players in order to be a Western Conference playoff, contender, not just a team that makes the playoffs if everybody's healthy. But look, I think there's a lot of pressure on that job. And again, everything I hear about Mitch Johnson is great. I've only had the chance to interview him once, but it's going to be interesting to see for sure. It's easier said than done.
All right, more relevant to the local audience is the coaching situation with the Utah Jazz. Will Hardy has been extended through 2031. What is the thought process behind this when, I think I know, but you're the expert here.
Well, look, I mean, yes, the team had the worst record in the league, but it was because he was told to lose. And
yes.
It was extremely clear that, the front office was holding players out on the injury report, that the front office was messing with the rotations in order to get worse players out there. Frankly, by the end of the year, they were just playing the worst possible lineups at the end of games in order to try to lose them. And so when you're doing that to your coach, it's pretty unfair then if you then turn around and fire him when things get good. And so I think reasonably his agents probably reached out to the Jazz and were like, hey, if this is going to be the process, we want some contractual stability here. And I think Will is really highly regarded around the league for what he's done with his 5-out system, especially, with in the first 2 years when the Jazz were actually trying to win games. I would say that he probably exceeded expectations with regards to that. So, and then they really like that, he is a coach that does buy in to the long-term plan of tanking games and then developing young players and trying to make them better. The Jazz are so far away from contending, but now extending Will Hardy's contract out to 2030 probably includes what they hope will be that contention window. So, I thought it was the fair move and the right move. And honestly, the question at the end of this year wasn't would the Jazz retain Will Hardy? It was whether Will Hardy would retain on the Jazz or, frankly, just find a situation in which it was more likely that they'd win sooner. And so now I think, we have that answer that Will Hardy says he's all in. I think he is all in. He's now just signed an extension for another 6 seasons. And, Ultimately, I do think like he is actually a pretty good coach, and this was a good move for the Jazz as well.
The timing of doing it before the draft lottery comes down, it does add one more element of the unknown for on the Hardy side of things. I think more than on the Jazz side of things. But if you get the wrong pick here, does that change the calculus on whether or not this was a good idea to extend somebody? It's a relatively long-term extension for someone who's still a new head coach.
Yeah, I mean, I think because either way, it's going to still be a while, right? Like, even if you get Cooper Flagg, we just talked about the Spurs with Victor Wembanyama. Even if you get the guy, you still are probably not a contending team for a couple more years, you know? So, yeah, I don't know that it matters that much, number 1 versus number 5, about how you feel about the extension. Obviously, Will Hardy would be extremely, extremely stoked if the Jazz get the number 1 pick. And, more than anyone maybe in the entire world wants the Jazz to win the lottery. But yeah, ultimately, like, how you feel about whether or not the extension is a good idea, because it is so long term, number 1 versus number 5 doesn't matter that much. I don't think.
Andy Larson, my guest for a couple more minutes here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking all things NBA. All right, has your idea about who's really a contender in this NBA playoff changed at all based on the results, early goings in a couple of series now that are in the second round? Some upsets, some comebacks, some insane numbers of three-pointers missed. Anything changed for you in terms of who you think's a real contender?
No, I mean, I think maybe I put the Pacers a little bit more in the real contender, and maybe not for the actual title, but to make it through to the Eastern Conference Finals than I did before. I do think that Denver, if they play like they have over the last couple of games, is a really hard team to beat, because they have the best player in the world and they run some really good stuff based off of that. I still believe in the Celtics. I still believe in the Thunder. I still think that they are probably the 2 most likely teams to make it. Maybe a little bit less belief in the Cavs just because of how they struggled as much as they did in Game 1. But ultimately it's a 7-game series, and gentlemen sweeps are still on the table, I think, in a couple of these cases. So not a ton. I was a little bit surprised to see the Lakers struggle as much as they did with the Timberwolves in round 1. That was one team I thought might be a contender that, frankly, just didn't have what it takes. But beyond that, I think we still need to see a little bit more from all these teams and these series in particular to really get an idea of, hey, X team is in real trouble here.
Who makes it further, Donovan Mitchell or Rudy Gobert in these playoffs?
Probably Donovan. Ultimately, I think the Cavs are just a much better. I don't want to say much better, but I think significantly better team than the Wolves are. Just better constructed, have more defensive versatility, have more ball handling options. Once you get past, and this was Minnesota's problem in the Western Conference Finals last year, if you can stop Anthony Edwards, the Wolves' lack of ball handling is tough, where the Cavs have Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, and heck, even now, Ty Jerome's done some nice stuff. I think ultimately you have to bet on the Cavs versus the Pacers, even though, they lost Game 1. But yeah, we'll see. I could absolutely see the Wolves having a step up too. I think it's going to be really fun to see how that Rudy Gobert versus Draymond Green Wolves Warrior series goes, right? I absolutely could see it going either way. Steph is one of the most clutch players, if not the most clutch player of his generation. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch for sure.
Sorry, I don't mean to correct you, but the clutch player of the year is Jalen Brunson, not Steph Curry. Okay, that's let's get
generation. We don't give awards generationally, but I'm giving Steph for I'm giving him that for 2024 at least, given what happened in the Olympics. How about that?
Fair enough. Speaking of the clutch player of the year award, have you agreed with the NBA awards so far, the ones that have been announced at least?
So I'm one of the 100 voters, and so everyone's and I actually did put my ballot on the Salt Lake Tribune as well at sltrib.com. I went in a couple different directions on a number of the awards that have been announced so far. So I agreed with Coach of the Year. I agreed with Sixth Man of the Year. For Defensive Player of the Year, I voted Amen Thompson, who actually wasn't even one of the top 3 finalists. But I thought he was the defensive player I had the most fun watching this year, and his stats when he was on the floor for the Rockets were pretty remarkable. For I think it was the league's 4th best defense this year. So I had him number 1, Draymond number 2. Ultimately, it was Evan Mobley who won the award. Who, honestly, great selection. Have nothing against Evan Mobley. Just didn't think the Cavs defense was that strong in the second half of the year. Speaking of clutch player, I voted LeBron clutch player of the year. Basically, there's a stat called clutch win probability added that just calculates, hey, when you made a shot and it made made your team go from 35% chance to win the game to 55% chance to win the game, you get 20% credit for that, right? And adds up all those moments over the course of the season, and LeBron was number 1 in that in terms of win probability added. So
don't tell Skip Bayless.
What's that?
Don't tell Skip Bayless that. He's built an entire career on the fact that LeBron is not clutch. So that you can't give him stats and numbers that disagree. That would be an existential threat to the man.
I'm not sure Skip is a big numbers guy or really literate anyway. But no, I mean, he was a writer for a long time. That might be harsh.
You don't know. He might have paid a ghostwriter. You don't know. It's fine.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Is there anything else I've disagreed with so far? Coach of the Year I had, yeah. But it's always fun. Like, it is so stressful, dude, to be one of the 100 voters. Like, I did a ton of pressure. Like you feel a lot of pressure. I did a ton of research to try to figure out like what I was going to vote for, and what I wanted to do. And it's just like, you want to make the right calls because it is important for these guys' legacies for sure.
Well, I appreciate that you take the responsibility seriously because there are some awards out there in some sports where it feels pretty clear that the voters don't always do the process justice. So thanks for being a professional on that front. Who is your MVP then?
I voted Jokic, and I think Shea is going to win it. But Jokic is a 3-time MVP who has had the best season of his career. Shot 45% from 3 this year, besides scoring 30 points a game, 12 rebounds a game, and 10 assists per game, averaging a triple-double. I'm just blown away by his level of production, and ultimately chose that over Shea, who was the best player on the best team and has an excellent case, and I think I'd vote for him in a majority of years, but just what Jokic did this year was absolutely bonkers.
Do the Utah Jazz end up with the number 1 pick on Monday?
I'm going to say no, 86% chance, but I will be in that room. They're going to take my phone away while they do the actual lottery ball process. So I will be maybe the last person to report what happens on, at least in the TV show before they let us out of the room and stuff. But I'll be there to kind of watch whichever Jazz representatives are in that room. I don't know if that's going to be Danny Ainge or Will Hardy or Justin Zanuck or Ryan or who yet, but it will be fascinating, I think, to watch the reactions of all 14 teams in that room kind of up close.
How are your drawing skills? Can you give us like the courtroom sketch?
Yeah.
Like take some chalks and pastels in there and give us a hopefully joyful but more likely dejected Ryan Smith and Will Hardy. Do your best.
My like doodle is just going to be like a stick figure with a real frowny face on it. It'll be awesome.
If the Trib prints that, I will. I don't know. I'll buy 10 of our listeners a Trib subscription. Like, let's go. Let's make that happen.
We might be able to make that work if you promise that. We'll talk to the marketing people and get involved.
Let's go. Andy, you're the man. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, OC. Have a good one.
Andy Larson, Jazz and NBA insider over at the Salt Lake Tribune. Mother's Day is coming. If you have not made your brunch plans, you're late. If you have not bought the gift, you're late. But thankfully, Scott Mitchell and Belliston Jewelries have a solution for you. Scott, what do you have?
Hey, Sean, we do have great solutions for you. We're here at Belliston Jewelry, 36th in Harrison in Ogden, right by Weber State. Mother's Day around the corner. Great options for Mother's Day. We talked about that in the last segment. It's not just the birthstone of your mother on a ring. There's slim bracelets you can get with your kids. There's pendants. There's necklaces. There's mix and match. There's stuff that fits any budget, right?
Yep.
And there's also lab diamonds. Lab diamonds, it's a way to go. Tell us a little bit, Sydney. I'm joined with Sydney here, Belliston. She's one of the owners. Joe's over in the corner. He's the coach. He's coaching us up here. But some great deals on lab diamonds.
Yeah, so I can tell you, price wise, we have anything to fit any budget. Just to give you an idea, on a 1 carat lab diamond, you'll be just about over $500. That's half the price of our competitors. They're over $1,000 for a 1 carat. And you can put them in any setting that you would want. If you want to go more traditional, like a traditional setting just with a diamond in it, or you can pick colored gemstones. We've got charms that can go on necklaces, bracelets, hoop earrings. So we've got a lot to offer right now.
Lab diamonds, don't be afraid of them. Okay, they're diamonds, and they're in a lot of ways maybe even better than other diamonds, but they are diamonds. They have the same quality. You cannot tell the difference. It's a great option for you. Amazing options here in the store. It's graduation. It's the engagement season. It's Mother's Day. Come in, guys. Don't wait around. Great deals, any budget. Belliston Jewelry here, 36th and Harrison in Ogden. Don't wait. And if you wait, they'll be patient with you too, and they'll have something for you. All right, Sean, that's what we got right now.
Thank you, Scott Mitchell. Thank you, Belliston Jewelers. Thank you to the geniuses who figured out how to create diamonds in a lab. I know that all of you young folks out there that are in that phase of life where you're getting engaged and potentially, moving on to adulthood, I know that cars are less affordable than ever. I know that it's impossible to buy a home right now. But you know what? You can buy a fat rock for that engagement ring in a way that us older folks never could. Because lab-grown diamonds. If you were not listening to the first Belliston segment that Scott checked in with, 1 carat in the $500-ish range, a 1 carat stone with high quality, clarity, etc. That's insane. That is 1/10 the price, less than 1/10 the price of what it would have cost even 10 years ago, 8 years ago. It's nuts.
Did you just say they're growing carrots at this jewelry store?
They're growing. No.
In the lab?
They don't. No, different.
Different. Oh, my bad. Different.
Spelled differently. CARAT.
I need to go have lunch. I'm getting hungry or something.
James. Okay, we're going to give away some concert tickets. I said it would have already happened from a timestamp perspective, but that's how things go when you're talking with Andy Larson. 3 minutes from now, I have some tickets to give away. It will be Eric Church coming to the Delta Center October 23rd. Tickets do go on sale Friday, but hopefully you can win at 877-353-0700, and then you don't have to buy them. Details are available at ESPN700sports.com. Giving them away with a trivia question next on the Sean O'Connell Show, Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700.
second one for Holmgren. It rims out. Brown grabs it. 7 seconds left. Westbrook, 5 seconds. They're down by 1. Gordon got it! Aaron Gordon with a deep shot. Williams, three-quarter court. No good. The Nuggets steal game 1. That's a winner for Aaron Gordon. 121 to 119.
Ian Eagle on that call from TNT Sports. Aaron Gordon, game-winning 3. Game 1 steal, as he said. The Nuggets get one from the Thunder in Oklahoma City, stunning the crowd. Just everyone there was flummoxed, perplexed, shocked that could possibly have happened because it looked like they had the game in hand with 2 minutes left. So, wow.
Well, and Holmgren, really good free throw shooter, especially for his size, 80-something%, maybe even higher. Misses both.
Yeah, missed both.
Yeah, it was unbelievable ending. Second game winner for Aaron Gordon in these playoffs.
He had 0 coming in.
At any level, right?
At any level. He had never hit a game-winning shot, and now he's hit 2 in the 2025 playoffs. The first one was effectively an accidental rebound alley-oop dunk, and that one, obviously, that's like a bona fide clutch game-winning shot. And shout out Russell Westbrook. Doesn't get a lot of love here for obvious reasons. Russell Westbrook could have tried to drive and get a contested dunk or layup there, and instead he found the open man. So
something he's been wont to do in the past. Do it himself.
Yes.
And you would think in that building where he had so much success, he might be tunnel vision Russ that way.
Start
but
showing off,
but he kept his cool and found the open guy.
Made the right play, and he probably was scared of if he did make the right play that Jokic and his brothers would have been like, hey, what was that about, bud? All right. Our next NBA playoff broadcast, Thunder and Nuggets tomorrow night. 7 o'clock right here on your home of the NBA playoffs, ESPN 791 FM. Eric Church tickets, a pair of them. He's coming October 23rd to the Delta Center, 877-353-0700. When Gordy Chiesa came on, we illustrated the difference between three-point shooting back in the Jazz glory days. I took the 1998 year versus what we're seeing in these playoffs. The Boston Celtics missed 45 three-point shots in a single game last night. Attempted 60, missed 45. And so I just went back and I found an equivalent game. Second round series, Utah Jazz, San Antonio Spurs, game 1. It was a Jazz victory, very close game. The losing team, just like the Celtics were the losing team last night, attempted how many three-point shots in that game? We talked about it. How many three-point shots did the San Antonio Spurs attempt in game 1 of the 1998 conference semifinal series against the Utah Jazz? Here's a hint. It's not 60. It's not anywhere near 60.
Hey, you're going to – Spence is listening somewhere, and he's going to be like, that's not a hint, OC. He got on Scott for that.
877-353
last week
0700.
Shout out to Spence.
Wait, that's not a hint?
Yes.
My sarcasm?
Scott said something sarcastic. It can't be – it was like how many of the top 50 players in the LPGA are competing at Black Desert last week? It was 30-something.
Okay.
So, a really good field at Black Desert last week down in St. George, by St. George, as you pointed out last week, too. Yeah. And Spence heard him because it was right going into crosstalk, and he goes, because Scott says, here's a hint, it's not 50. And Spence goes, that's not a hint, Scott.
All right. Who's calling us right now? Does someone want to call?
Yeah, let's see.
All right. Wow. I love when I'm talking to James and I hear the phone ring and I'm like, oh, is someone excited about listening to the show? 877-353-0700 to text in your answer. You can also call us and talk about three-point shooting and the insane disparities happening, almost 30 years on in the NBA. And I get it, right? Like there was a time where people in the NBA didn't know that they could dunk, didn't know how to dunk. And then somebody dunked and they were just like, oh, wow, this is cool. Let's do this. That's a high-efficiency shot, and it looks fun. Let's do that. And Steph Curry came along and was just like, I mean, not that Ray Allen and Reggie Miller and a bunch and Robert Horry and these guys wield the three-point shot as a very effective weapon in playoff basketball in the past, but it's just different now. And you're seeing it at every level of basketball, and we got some absurd three-point attempt numbers last night. Oh, that was someone calling to give the answer? Oh.
Yeah, so
okay, all right.
Text line only for the trivia questions.
353. Okay, sorry about that, person.
Yeah,
I should have clarified.
It's the same number, so maybe we didn't say text in.
877-353-0700.
But
text in your answer.
But hey, like seriously, we haven't done a ton of this because it seems like people are moving towards I want to text in my thoughts instead of call in. But like, if you got thoughts for us, especially in these segments when we don't have a guest, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from you.
Get an actual phone call. Go ahead and call us. Or you can text us, too. We'll read your text. When you text in, though, do us a favor and tell us at least first name and where you're texting from, too. We can shout you out.
Your real first name, okay? I don't want any aliases. I don't want you making stuff up. Stand on your comments, people. I put some poll questions out today. I want to refresh people and encourage everyone to go vote on these polls. The first one is how we started the show today. The Utah Hockey Club last night experienced an extreme run of good fortune in the NHL draft lottery. They went into the night thinking that the most likely spot, like a 94% chance, they were going to be drafting 14th in the upcoming NHL draft. And in a stroke of extreme luck, the 3% chance that they were going to cash in on pick number 4 actually hit. So that's where the Utah Hockey Club will be drafting heading into this next year. They'll be drafting number 4 overall, moved up 10 spots from 14. The Islanders, I said in the first segment, they also moved up 10 spots. I was incorrect. They moved up 9 spots. The New York Islanders jumped 9 spots and will be drafting number 1 overall, much to the chagrin of the Blackhawks, the Sharks, the Predators, and several other teams that got leapfrogged by a New York Islanders squad that thought they had no chance of drafting number 1 overall. So I guess congrats to the Islanders. More importantly, congrats to the Utah Hockey Club. But my immediate thought, and this tells you how poisonous my mind is, my immediate thought was, oh, well, there's no way they're going to get good luck twice, that we, as a Utah sports community, are going to get good luck twice, and also get Cooper Flagg and the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft. My thought goes to, well, you've used up all your good luck on pick number 4.
We had a texter who agrees with you he texted in during the opening segment. We apologize we didn't get to that yet, but he said, am I the only one worried about this? And no, you are not. OC, the host of the show, is also worried.
It might just be me and you, but I put a poll question out. Are you superstitious enough to feel that the Utah Hockey Club NHL draft lottery good fortune will in turn curse the Utah Jazz with bad NBA lottery luck? 35% of respondents have said Utah Hockey Club luck hurts the Jazz, so they do think it's related. More people are optimistic. You got a lot of folks in your boat, James Peterson, 41% saying double luck. The Jazz will get number 1.
That is what I voted.
And the rational thinkers are saying unrelated, but still the Utah Jazz don't get number 1.
I voted double luck.
Okay, all right.
I would venture a guess that if Andy Larson, our last guest from the Salt Lake Tribune, who came at it from a data analyst standpoint, a mathematician standpoint, I would venture a guess option 3, unrelated, but
yeah, I mean he did
probably won't get it.
He did, like, the first question I asked him, he was like, "No, stop it, they're unrelated." And the last question I asked him, "Are the Jazz going to get number 1?" He said no, because there's a 86% chance that they don't get number 1. So even though it's not related, he still feels like the Jazz are not going to get number 1. So right now, 41% of the respondents think that the Jazz will get number 1, and for various reasons, or one reason or the other is the better way to say that, the remainder of individuals, 59%, think that the Utah Jazz will not be picking number 1 next Monday. I might ask this question every single day up until Monday. Just throw it out there every day to see the mood, get the pulse of the people. I also put a question out that has nothing to do with sports, but is a debate in my house, and I'm not going to try to lead any witnesses here. But my wife and I were having a discussion about attending concerts, musical concerts. And we were kind of tallying up the concerts that we had seen. And one of us was counting Stadium of Fire shows as a concert. The other one said, that's not a concert. Doesn't count. In turn, that became an argument where the individual counting them as concerts made a case that absolutely it's a concert, and the individual opposite said, no, that's a fireworks show that an individual happens to be playing music at. So I put a poll question out there to help resolve a debate in my own house. Does attending Stadium of Fire, which is coming up in just a couple of months.
Do I throw a flag for you using your show for personal reasons? Do we do that?
You can if you want, but I'm still going to do it.
Still gonna do it.
Like, throw the flag.
I'll take the penalty.
Like, yeah, this is like when you take the holding penalty, because if you don't, it's going to be a sack strip fumble. I got to do this one. You know what I mean? It's the pass interference on the guy that's about to beat me for a touchdown. I'd rather have the flag. Help resolve a debate. Does attending Stadium of Fire and seeing the musical artist count as, throw up the air quotes, going to a concert? Can you then claim that you have seen that artist in concert? James, what's your answer?
It feels so gray area, right? Which is why it's a great question. I'll say no, because
no. All right.
The fireworks are the main reason for the show, and they're not doing like they've had some great guests over the years for Stadium of Fire. Shout out to the folks down south for booking those great acts.
Yeah, they've had some really, really good ones,
but they're not doing the same set that they're going to do at a regular concert, right?
All
right. So it's probably, and the fireworks are the main thing. It's 4th of July. So
one
maybe
might argue,
no.
One might argue that you're actually getting a better set because it's a shorter concert typically, and so they're going to play the hits and not so much of the B-side stuff.
Yeah,
one might argue that if they were not trying to lead the witnesses one direction or the other.
Oh, one. Who is this one?
I'll tell you what. It might not be about either of those things. It might not be about the musical act or the fireworks. It might just be about the jingle. Stadium of Fire. You know what I mean? One of the best, most memorable ones. And it's just simple. It's just the name of the show.
They had their own version of that, not with way less fanfare, not near as good of acts in St. George at the old Sun Bowl.
And what was that called? Sun Bowl of Fire.
I don't even know if it had a name. Maybe someone from St. George who's listening could text it if they remember a name. But it was like, so Coney Country's the big country station down there. It was their like live event, 4th of July thing. And they had, so usually it was a country act.
Okay. All right.
But not like Toby Keith, rest in peace, Toby, or Garth Brooks, Tim McGraw, any of these that are like, oh yeah, it was like one hit wonder type country guys.
All right,
it's still
fair.
packed the Sun Bowl every year. I think they do it at the college stadium now, Greater Zion Stadium.
All right,
at Dixie State. Well, Utah Tech now.
So currently, 73% of the votes are saying yes, it is a concert. 26.5% saying no, it's not a concert.
Okay.
It's not the fireworks.
I'm one of the snobs, I guess.
All right, that's fine.
So you're
I don't want to lead the witness.
Okay.
I'm not going to tell you what I think. I don't want people to vote based on their desire to disagree with me or their desire to agree with me.
Save that for the end of the show. We'll unveil it.
And the integrity of the vote is paramount here.
We'll see what Spence thinks. Maybe in crosstalk, then we might.
Because my wife asked me to put this on the poll. She said, do the poll, do the survey, and whoever wins gets bragging rights, I guess. I did put up another poll. I will take a break and we'll come back and talk about this one. Texas football is apparently fielding a roster this year in 2025 that's going to cost between $35 and $40 million of NIL money. We'll talk about what that means for everybody else in college football next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 792 on FM. We're going to have to table that discussion I promised you about the Texas NIL money. We'll get to that in hour number 3. I'm not managing the clock very well today. Scott Mitchell is up at Belliston Jewelry with solutions for you as you have procrastinated way too long ahead of Mother's Day. It's coming this Sunday, so make your meal plans, dress up nice, make the kids take a bath, and show the mothers in your life how much you appreciate them, maybe with some love from Belliston. Scott, what do you and Belliston have for all of us who've waited too long?
Well, that's a great question, Sean. And we have options because you get nervous, right? And you don't know if you're going to pick the right thing, or is she going to like it, or, and so I'm here with Sydney Belliston, one of the owners. We're here at Belliston Jewelry, 36th in Harrison and Ogden. And she has a solution that's foolproof. You can't go wrong with this one, right, Sydney?
Right. This is absolutely what you would want to do if you find yourself in that predicament where you're not sure what to get, you're not sure what she's going to like. The best way to go is some diamond earrings, some diamond stud earrings. We've got their lab diamond earrings for half carat total weight. You're looking at $379 for, if you want a full carat, you're at $599. So we've got really good prices on them. And these stud diamond earrings are always a wow factor. Always, they go with everything. They're something that every woman, regardless of what stage of life she's in, she'll love, she'll wear, she'll cherish.
So men, listen to what a woman just said. Okay, you cannot go wrong with stud earrings. They have amazing selections, varying budgets. You'll pick a winner if you do that. So don't feel the pressure. They also have amazing custom jewelry, and so you can go from off the shelf stud amazing to super custom and everything in between. Come out today. Come out tomorrow. Come out every week to Belliston Jewelry. We just saw a guy walk out the door. He just got an engagement ring. It's engagement season. It's graduation season. And of course, it's Mother's Day. Can't go wrong at Belliston Jewelry. Come check them out. 36th in Harrison here in Ogden.
Scott, thank you to Belliston. And really do check out the incredible deals right now. It ain't your mom and pop's jewelry time. You can get big-time, high-quality, beautiful diamonds for a lot less than you'd think these days. And Belliston also has so many incredible options on creating those heirloom-type pieces, if that's what you're more interested in than the off-the-shelf type of stuff. Reminder to all of you out there that we are not done giving – we gave away concert tickets. We're not done giving away good stuff on the show today. The Festival of Tees, powered by the Utah Golf Association and Mountain America Credit Union, mean that we are going to give away golf on every show every day here on ESPN 700. So down and dirty, right here on the Sean O'Connell Show and on the Drive with Spence Checketts. We've got free rounds of golf to give away. Where are we dropping someone some free golf today, James?
Got an indoor golf venue. Ooh. So instead of, we've said 18 holes, some courses are only 9 holes, 9-hole rounds. This is an hour, free hour at Hive Indoor Golf.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. So you can play one of those places where they've got the simulators, right? You can probably play Augusta if you want instead of playing Mountain Dell. Like
you heard it here from James. We are giving you an hour of golf at Augusta.
I mean, that's what a lot of these simulators, they have those kind of golf courses put in.
Technically, it's
probably
not incorrect.
Yeah.
James Peterson is offering you a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to play some golf at Augusta. Never mind the asterisks or the fine print. Just know that the Festival of Tees and the Utah Golf Association, in conjunction with Mountain America, making it possible for you.
Absolutely. My one of my good friends from high school who still lives in St. George, they built this beautiful home, and in his garage, in his third car garage, he's put his golf simulator, which is awesome. And it's one of those where users can create their own course, and it's just put in this database. He's playing Augusta whenever he wants to. Someone's built Black Desert into this golf simulator that he has. He's also a graphic designer, so it's like he loves golf and graphic design, and this is like he gets to do both at the same time.
Like the marriage of his two worlds there.
I haven't been to Hive Indoor Golf. Maybe we're over promising things, but that's what these kind of golf simulators tend to do, and that's probably a similar experience you can get at Hive Indoor Golf.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Hive Indoor Golf is at least as good as your buddy's garage
right?
simulator.
I would think so.
Okay,
I would think so.
I think we could go out on a limb
if
and say
if they're charging people entrance fees, probably. So, but yeah, we're giving you away probably a similar experience, probably a better experience than that at Hive Indoor Golf later today.
I wonder if an indoor golf simulator purchase is one of those things that, you work yourself up to it, you convince yourself it's a great idea, and then it's like a treadmill where you use it for like a month and you're just like, and it just becomes a clothing rack. I don't know. I mean, I have a friend who has one, and I think he uses it pretty frequently, and he's got 3 sons that I'm sure are using it too, but it strikes me, it could be like a Bowflex,
Yeah.
where you're just like, all right, I'm going to drop the $1,500 on this bad boy, and you're real enthusiastic about it for a short time. And after that, you're just like, well, that was not my best purchase. I don't know. That's why you go to a place like Hive Indoor Golf, which we're giving away free today. We'll do that in 52 minutes.
By the way, shout out to Bruce in Copperton. He's the one who won the Eric Church tickets. So shout out to Bruce.
Heck yeah, Copperton, great spot.
Yeah,
out on the west side,
side,
all the way up against the Ochre Mountains.
Yeah, the other mountains, you know the ones that never get talked about that are pretty good too. Yeah,
all up and down
over
the
there.
Ochre front. Nope, we're not, because we're the Ochre back. All right, this is the Wasatch front, the Ochre back. Sean O'Connell Show continues with Belle Fraser, who stops by to talk about the surprising results of the NHL Draft Lottery. Utah Hockey Club, a.k.a. Mammoth, will be drafting number 4 instead of 14. We'll discuss it next on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
But you talk about two Hail Marys that were answered tonight. You talk about the Islanders from center ice. It looks like this team went from about 200 feet, Bill Daly.
The winner of the second draw of the 2025 draft lottery, and now the fourth overall selection in the 2025 NHL Upper Deck entry draft, belongs to the Utah Hockey Club.
Wow, the stories in Utah, Frank.
That sound comes from the Utah Hockey Club getting the number 4 pick in the NHL draft, courtesy of ESPN. Utah moved up the maximum 10 spots. You could not move up more than those 10 spots. 14th worst team in the regular season. They now have the 4th overall pick. It is good fortune that you dream about if you're Bill Armstrong and the Smith Entertainment Group, as long as it doesn't affect the Jazz draft lottery, which I am not convinced the two things live in a vacuum, but, you know, science says they do. Belle Fraser joins us to talk about this and all thing Utah Hockey Club, as well as the NHL playoffs that are going on right now. Belle, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. I honestly, I got to admit, I didn't watch the draft lottery live because I was like, okay, 94% chance they're picking 14. We'll talk about that on the show tomorrow. They'll be number 14. We'll see what's available at 14. Boom! Number 4 in this upcoming draft, and that changes the conversation pretty drastically in terms of the kind of player you can get. What were your thoughts when you saw number 4 pop up for the Utah Hockey Club?
I mean, exactly what you just said. It really changes the type of player that they can bring into this organization, and that's what Bill Armstrong said, too. We talked to him on a Zoom call about 5 minutes after it happened, and he was still pretty shocked, but he said, you know, your mind just starts turning and it changes completely, because I imagine the scouting team, like a lot of the beat writers, were looking at 10 through 14. You know, they're looking at, if you're looking at the top 20 of the draft, you're looking at the 10 lowest ones in that group. And I know I had a story written about, you know, the 8 players they should look at from 10 to 18 right now. So they have to call an audible, which is great. I mean, I think they wouldn't want it any other way, but just for some perspective, I put this in my story today, but Clayton Keller was 7th overall. Logan Cooley was 3rd overall. Dylan Guenther was 9th overall. And they're different draft classes, of course, but for Utah fans that maybe are new to the NHL or don't get the magnitude of it, I mean, it could be a franchise player, and or they could trade it too. So I think they have a lot of options on the table, but there's not a clear number 1 this year like there has been in past years with Connor Bedard and Macklin Celebrini. So I think that makes it a bit more unclear what will be left on the table for Utah at 4. But yeah, it's huge. And to go from 14 to 4, they had a 1.5% chance of doing that. So I think everyone was just happy they were in the first round. And you can find talent anywhere in the draft, but it definitely helps when you can zoom in on, you know, 10 prospects instead of 30 to 40 in the first round.
How conspiracy centered are you? Are you a believer in, like, hey, the leagues may or may not be manipulating some of this to make sure certain players end up certain places, certain markets are rewarded for certain things? I know that we're not supposed to believe that, but I do. Where do you stand?
I mean, I see where people come from for sure, especially with this. The previously Arizona Coyotes, who obviously Ryan Smith bought, never really got lottery luck, and then they moved to Utah and they jump up 10 spots. But what was really unique about this year was it was the first time that they did it live on television. Usually they do it in a secluded room with a couple of people, phones are away, and then they announce it on TV. But there's a group of people with ESPN in the league who already know the draft order. But this time, if people watched it, the lottery ball machine was going, the ping pong balls were going. So they said part of the reason they did that was to dispel the conspiracy theories, and they put it on TV. I mean, it was on camera, so it would be pretty hard to, I think, change the outcome of that. But I understand when people say that. It is kind of ironic the year after they move to Utah, they get the pick, but hey, they'll take it. Conspiracy or not, you get the 4th overall and you run with it.
And the Islanders also, I mean, the number 1 overall pick went to a team that should have been the number 10 overall pick, which is wild. And, you know, there are at the very top of the draft boards, this James Hagen's kid, who I know you love because he's a Boston College guy. and you have a deep affection for Boston College as a former Terrier. But, he's a Long Island kid. I know he's not like a definite number one overall, but this is the NHL. This is not the NFL. This is not the NBA. They do things a little bit differently in the NHL. Are the Islanders going to look at this and be like, man, we could draft a homegrown fan favorite kind of kid, or do they still have to go best player available on their board regardless of it? Because they didn't expect that they would be here.
Yeah, I think a bit of both. And Bill Armstrong said his philosophy is you just go for the best player on the board. But when you're picking at number one, you get to decide who the best player is. There's no one that you can't have. So I think it just goes into a need-based, choice by then. And like you said, Hagen's from Long Island, grew up there. And the difference with NHL draft is that these guys can go back and play junior hockey or college hockey for as long as they want. Usually if you're a higher pick, you could sign right away or you play just 1 year, but it's believed that Hagens will go back to Boston College for his sophomore season. So I think that has a lot to do with it as well. Do they want someone to come in immediately, or do they want their first overall pick to marinate a little bit before they sign their entry-level contract, which is super normal. I don't think Utah Hockey Club fans should be disappointed or confused if Utah keeps their pick and whoever they choose fourth overall doesn't join the team immediately. So that's something to look out for. But yeah, I could see them taking Hagens, but I could also see them taking Matthew Schaefer, who's a great defenseman. He's the only defenseman in that, presumed top 5 group. And Islanders, I think you saw this season, could use some strength on the blue line, but it's a lot of centers. And then Porter Martone is a right wing and a defenseman. So they kind of have, except for a goalie, they can pick a winger, a center, or a defenseman. So you can't really go wrong if you're looking for a specific need. There's kind of personnel in each position on the board.
What about, for the Utah Hockey Club? Where do you think they want to use this number 4?
Yeah, I think personally they need to get bigger. I think they need an actual top 6 center and a scoring center. Barrett Hayton has been their second-line center this year, and he's been good in that role, but I think on a contending winning team, he's more of a third-line center. You want to keep Logan Cooley on that first line or second line because he's proven he can do that, but I think Utah needs someone on that second line or just a top 6 forward who has that back-breaking goal, who can score in bunches, who has consistency, and it's just a generational talent the way that Keller, Gunther, and Cooley are and the way they've helped the team. They're top 4 in points. So I think you need another guy like that, but size is really big. I mean, you look at Utah's top 6, and there's not a lot of people over 6'2", and you look at how these playoff teams are built. It's a lot of physicality, and you have to be able to score, but also throw a hit and hold your own and wear down the other team. So I think that's something they're definitely thinking about. And in that respect, Martone kind of fits that bill. He's 18 years old, 98 points in the OHL this season. He's 6'3", 208 pounds. He's not a center. He's a right shot on the wing, but you'll think about that. And then Hagens is a little smaller. He's 5'10". Michael Misa is 6'1", and he's a center, but he'll probably go off earlier. So I think those are things you balance. I would say look for a center, look for size, but Utah, like Bill said, I think they're just going to take the best player. Maybe that's kind of a white lie because he doesn't want to show his cards, but they could also trade the pick. Utah's coming out of the 4th year of a rebuild right now, and they're kind of in win now mode. And it depends. Could they throw a 4th overall pick in a package with an active player and a prospect and get a huge player who could step into the lineup right away, who's already a solidified top 6 forward in the NHL? And there's going to be a lot of teams who finished worse than Utah that are going to want to move up in the draft. Like you said, the Islanders are first. They should have been 10. Buffalo probably wants to move up. Seattle wants to move up. Boston wants to move up. So I think a lot of teams will be calling Bill Armstrong, and he said he's always keeping that door open. That's how they've gotten a lot of players in the past. Last draft, they traded a pick for John Marino. They threw in 2 picks in the Mikhail Sergachev trade, and those are your top 2 defensemen now. So I think that's an avenue that they're going to explore, and they could just not use it as well. So I think that's something people should think about.
Belle Fraser, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, NHL and Utah Hockey Club insider. And that brings me to the thing I was most excited to discuss with you today, Belle, because I love this whole name of the team saga. And also, you probably don't know this about me. I am a paleontology nerd. I follow and like I love prehistoric life. Mammoth would be a phenomenal name for that reason. But also, you wrote an incredible article. It was released 5 days ago now on the Trib about the state connection to mammoths and the Columbian mammoth that was discovered, the Huntington mammoth, like the actual real reason why this mascot would make sense, and spoke with paleontologists. Put on your where was this on your radar? Like, I don't know, coming out of school, you're applying for jobs, you're figuring out what you're going to do. Did you ever think that you would be writing an article about mammoth digs in central Utah?
I did not, but I have to say it's one of my favorite stories that I think I have written about Utah Hockey Club. Selfishly, it was really fun to kind of be a student again and learn about something I obviously had very little expertise in going into the story. You write so much about hockey, which I obviously love, but getting to hear from these paleontologists who are so knowledgeable and are really excited to talk about it. It's not, a lot of them talk about how it's an underfunded area of work and everyone loves the dinosaurs and the fossils, but they're not always getting a lot of questions about mammoths. So they were really open and so helpful with photos and research and everything of that nature. And I didn't really care about what the name was going to be before. I just wanted the fan pick to be happy. But now that I did that story, I'm kind of pulling for mammoths. It was really cool. I mean, if people read it, there was a woman named Martha Hayden in that story who was incredible, but she was part of the 3-person excavation group who dug up the Huntington mammoth, and seeing her photos and the uniqueness of it, that the Huntington mammoth in Utah is the only mammoth that got its genome sequenced. So, they got the DNA from that and got to learn so much more about the species. And that's in a small Utah community. So it's something they take a lot of pride in, that the Utah mammoth kind of helped move forward the study of mammoths. So they see it very connected to the state, which I think makes it a cool name for the Utah Hockey Club. But yeah, it was definitely not something that I thought I would be diving into, but I'm happy I got the opportunity to.
So how far down the rabbit hole have you gone now on mammoths? Because you're very busy and you have like a real job and a real life. So you've got, but like, do you know that they're trying to bring the woolly mammoth back from extinction? Are you aware of this?
I did not know that. No.
Yeah, actually, back in your old neck of the woods, the gene lab, the cloning lab at Harvard is deeply involved in that. This startup company, Colossal, with sequenced mammoth DNA, are trying to bring back a woolly mammoth. It's going to happen in our lifetime. A genetically engineered woolly mammoths. They've isolated the genes. They give them the gigantic tusks and the high red blood cell count and the woolly fur and all that kind of stuff. So in our lifetime, especially yours, because you're a lot younger than me, there are going to be woolly mammoths alive, and it's
That's
fascinating.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I mean, if that's not reason enough, but yeah, it's so cool. I'm invested now.
Awesome. I'm not going to force you to talk woolly mammoths anymore on this show, I promise. But I do want to talk to you about these NHL playoffs. Of course, Utah Hockey Club is not part of it right now. Hopefully, 2-3 years from now, we're experiencing these playoff atmospheres that we're seeing on television right now. But as we've rounded into the second round, I guess, of the Stanley Cup playoffs, your favorite series so far, or the favorite thing you've seen so far?
Those 2 Game 7s were crazy. I think Dominic Moore, who's the TV analyst for SEG and Utah Hockey Club, he tweeted out a stat that there had been only like 3 Game 7 comebacks in third period comebacks in NHL history, and this week we had 2 on back-to-back nights. So fans have been spoiled. I'm sure that the Avalanche fans and Blues fans wouldn't see it that way, but if you don't have a horse in the race, it's been so fun to watch. So I think those 2 stand out, just the Stars coming back and Mikko Rantanen having a hat trick in Game 7 against the team that traded him to take them out of the playoffs. It doesn't get more of an obvious story than that. I think I tweeted that I was jealous of the beat writers that night, because just such a cool, comeback story for him. And then the Blues Jets too. Blues were up 2 goals and Jets come back and tie it with 1 seconds left and win in double OT. I think the drama of the NHL this year has been outstanding ever since the Four Nations face-off tournament. I think people started realizing that hockey can be an entertaining sport, and these playoffs have just furthered that. And then a really big game one against between the Panthers and Maple Leafs last night. Obviously, Stolarz, the Leafs goalie, left the game after Sam Bennett hit him, which is really unfortunate. Hope he's doing okay, but that kind of raises the tensions early on in that series. So I'm excited for that. I think that's probably the series I like most in the second round. Maybe Oilers, Golden Knights, Stars. Yeah, honestly, Stars, Jets too. I just don't fully care about Hurricanes, Capitals, but I'll watch everything. I think a lot of hockey fans and sports fans, if there's a playoff game on, they'll watch it.
We got game one of Knights Oilers tonight. How do you see that series going?
I think probably game 7. Or 6 at least. I think Knights might be a bit deeper, but it's hard to bet against a team that has Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. So I think that's a pretty evenly matched series, but Knights have done it before. I think Bruce Cassidy is a great coach. But again, I bet against the Oilers against the Kings, and I ate my words pretty quickly. So I learned a lesson in round 1, so I won't fully count them out. But I think that's going to be, a tough battle.
The All-Star game for 2026 in the NHL has been canceled, but it's not bad news. They're going to pivot to what we think will be another Four Nations type challenge. Massively successful this past season, and I think it would be again. Is that what we should have our eyes set on? Is that they're just going to try to repeat the Four Nations, maybe with different countries or something?
Yeah, well, it seems because the 2026 Milan Olympics happen right after that, so it seems like it'll be some sort of preview for that, but I don't think – I can't imagine they do a full Four Nations because those guys want to be healthy for Olympics, but I think if they learned anything this year is that viewership and people's interest is 10-fold or 100-fold for an international tournament rather than an all-star game where the guys don't care in a skating competition. So I don't believe they'll ever go back to that NHL all-star format fully. We'll see what they do with that week next year. But, a lot of the guys that didn't make the playoffs, Clayton Keller is one of them. He's captain of Team USA for the men's world championship right now. So they're over there in Sweden and Denmark playing for gold for their country right now as kind of an Olympic primer. So maybe something like that, but we'll see. But Clayton Keller is definitely one of those names that he's going to want to participate in whatever that is. He's fighting for a spot right now. So a Utah tie to all of that, I think, is Keller's name in the hat.
That's Belle Frazier, Utah Hockey Club insider, NHL insider over at the Salt Lake Tribune. And it is required reading. If you're a listener to this program, you have to go check out the incredible article she did on the Utah mammoth, the connection of this state to the actual mammoth species and the dig and recovery of the Huntington mammoth back in, 1988. So great stuff. As always, Belle, really incredible, and appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. Have a good one.
Really do check out the article. For a sports writer to dive into paleontology and do such a great job, and it's in the sports section, by the way, of the Trib. So go Mammoth. I just mentioned something, James. I know that you are less conspiracy-oriented than myself, okay? Where do you think, all of you out there listening, where do you think the NHL All-Star Game was supposed to be in 2026? If you guessed Long Island, New York, it's now the UBS Arena, used to be the Nassau Coliseum. So you're telling me that the owner of the Long Island or the New York Islanders was going to get bad news officially that his home-hosted 2026 NHL All-Star Game was going to be canceled in favor of something else, international competition of some sort. The governor has already written letters, and you're telling me that these two things are unrelated? Canceled the All-Star Game, said, sorry, we have to take this away from you, but you might feel better about this number 1 overall pick in the upcoming NHL draft. You're telling me those two things announced a day apart are unrelated? You may have the number 1 overall pick. Please don't be so angry that we're taking away the All-Star game. Are those two things really unrelated, sports fans?
Is that a tinfoil hat you just fastened for yourself?
I mean,
check us out on YouTube if you want to see. No, he doesn't actually have a tinfoil hat.
It's a very strong coincidence, James, that something that upsets everyone down to the core in that Eilers community is being announced right after. Hey, but look, what happened for you? This stroke of good luck. I mean, come on. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. All right. One of our great partners on the show. You need a roofing guy, okay? You need a window guy. You need a roof guy. You need a concrete guy. If you're a homeowner, you need all of these things. 801-839-4501, Top Local Roofing. I've told you, save that number in your phone for hopefully before you have a problem with your roof. But especially when you do have that problem, you're going to be glad that you have that number in your phone. Top Local Roofing. Eugene joins us now to talk about all the great stuff they've going on. Top Local Roofing, a roofing company you can trust with everything under the roof. Eugene, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Good, LC. How you doing today?
Doing all right. We had, crazy wind at my house, a bunch of rain at my house, and I couldn't help but think about, man, this is exactly why you have to make sure that your roof is in good shape after a winter with a lot of freezes and maybe those ice dams building up and doing some damage. You don't want the leaks to start. You want to get that roof taken care of before water starts getting into your house. Is this the right time to call Top Local Roofing to check all that out?
Yeah, LC, that's a great question. Yes, it is a great time to give us a call to get your roof inspected. That was me out there bringing the rain. I was out there doing a little rain dance. We needed some more storms out here in the state of Utah.
And you guys have not only a track record of incredible service and just a resume with new construction, roof replacement, roof repair, storm damage, all of that. You're also running great deals for our ESPN 700 listeners. What do you have for the folks?
Today, we're offering a $50 gift card for any appointments that are set and scheduled for today. We're also doing the upgraded ridge vents as well as 50% off gutters.
So they're just stacking deals on top, one on top of the other. And as your company is growing, James just told me this, you guys are growing so fast that if anyone out there is looking for a job right now, you're looking to hire appointment setters and appointment closers. Is that right?
That is correct.
So Top Local Roofing can hook you up with a roof. Maybe you're the homeowner. Maybe you're the parent who's got a kid out there fresh out of school, heading into school, whatever, and you know somebody who needs a job. Top Local Roofing, call them up. 801-839-4501. Get those appointments set. Take advantage of the discounts and the deals today, and they will take care of everything that you and your home needs. Top Local Roofing. Eugene, thanks for stopping by again.
Thank you, LC.
801-839-4501. A roofing company you trust with everything under the roof. Top Local Roofing, offering you great deals and potentially, if you need one, a job as an appointment setter or a closer. James, you got to stay here. I need you as a producer. I don't want you calling Eugene for a job.
Shoot, I just was
James?
thinking I am the ideal appointment setter and closer. I can do both for him.
Okay.
My bad. ABC, always be closing, right?
I promised this earlier in the show. Pro Football Talk is reporting that the Texas Longhorns football roster heading into 2025 is going to cost about $35 to $40 million of NIL money. Now, that's what you're supposed to compete with if you're Utah, if you're BYU, if you're anyone who's got hopes of making a college football playoff. Eventually, you might have to run into Texas. Arizona State, last year's Big 12 champion, ran into the Longhorns roster this last cycle, right? So you might be up against that. In a one-game scenario, how much money, realistically, does your roster have to cost in order for you to potentially beat somebody who's paying $40 million to a bunch of college kids? Let's get into that next on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. All right, we know there's no salary cap in college football. We know there's no real safeguards against the arms race and the overspending. And we know that a lot of the reports last year were that Ohio State was pushing past $20 million for a national championship roster. Didn't win them a conference championship, but didn't win them a national championship.
Hey, what's the bigger title?
And
OC?
now,
Tell me.
And now, reports are out there that for Texas, it's going to be about $35 to $40 million of NIL money this year for the Longhorns. And I'm using them as the high watermark because I haven't seen a bigger number than that. But, Ohio State's got to be pushing to 30, and Miami's up there. Texas Tech is probably getting close. If you look at some of the transfer talent that they brought in, they're at least over 20. I mean, there's big money being thrown around in college football right now, and there's no cap to keep the playing field level. We know that there are salary cap leagues where it's still not truly a level playing field, right? I mean, in baseball, there are some teams that the owners are just cheap and they try to keep it down near the minimum, and there are other teams where the owners are pushing into the luxury tax. It just is it's a strange deal, okay? When you boil it down, you don't have to beat Texas more than once if you're not in their conference, right? So if you're a Big 12 team, if you're the eventual Big 12 champion, if you're Arizona State, who pushed them to the absolute limit last year as one of the surprise teams in the country, if you're BYU, who's got aspirations on a conference title and inclusion in the playoff, if you're Utah, who very obviously is looking at and for the same thing, can you realistically be expected to compete with a $40 million roster if you have a $10 million roster, a $5 million roster? Well, $5 million, the answer is no. $10 million, the answer is I probably no. If you're talking 10 to 20 million, now you're getting into a place where you got some really super talented guys. And that's what Arizona State was a year ago, like a $8 to $10 million roster.
I was going to say, I think that they proved, even though they lost, I think that they proved that if you can get to double digits as far as how much you're paying, and we're making the giant assumption that means that those players are actually going to perform on the field the way that you thought they would when you give them that kind of money, right? I think they proved last year that even though they came up short, that they played well enough that you can, if you're a $10 million roster, you probably can beat a Texas who's 30 to 40 million in a one-game scenario.
Yeah, and that's where the key is here, right? The one-game
scenario. On a
scenario.
neutral field, by the way, too. No, I mean, Texas had a lot more fans because they were in the South, but that bowl game was in the South, Peach Bowl, right? But you may have to go to a place where it's going to be a virtual road game, even though it's neutral field, but it's still neutral field, not on those other teams' campuses. So that helps too if you're one of those people that think there's no way fill in the blank, my favorite team, fill in the blank, can compete with a team like Texas in a one-game playoff scenario. There are ways that make it a little more fair in those circumstances.
And I mean, the neutral site is one of those. But the thing that levels the playing field some is that it is a one-game competition. This is not an NBA playoff series. This is not an NHL playoff series. This is not Major League Baseball where, I mean, we see it all the time in baseball especially. On any given day in baseball, any roster can beat any roster. Over the life of a series, though, it's the Dodgers and it's the Yankees and it's the the Red Sox. It's the big spenders, right? It's the people that are pushing and acquiring the most talent. And you're not going to see the Oakland/Sacramento, hopefully eventually Salt Lake City Athletics until someone's really ready to spend. You're not going to see them winning meaningful playoff series again, probably. Not with the current ownership. So it's easy to look at, Ohio State's got way more money and you can't compete with that. Texas has got way more money. You can't compete with that. What you really have to be able to compete with is your conference's level of spending. And if Texas Tech and their oil money billionaire donors are going to push into that realm, that is where it gets dicey for BYU and Utah. If they're going to keep it similar to the Big 12 standard that we set, I guess, last year or the year before, and obviously there's going to, these prices are going to inflate year over year over year. But if you're not engaging in this insane, let's double the value arms race that the SEC is, I think you're okay. It would be better if you had $40 million to throw at a roster, and you did so with effective talent evaluation and player development and that kind of thing. But I don't think it's the only way that you can win. I think that there are one-game scenarios in which you can now that gets you a playoff win. And the unfortunate reality is, as a Big 12 champion or a Big 12 runner-up, you might have to win 4 playoff games. And the unfortunate reality there is, while Texas might be the high water mark, they are certainly not alone. And if you have to beat a $30 million Ohio State roster and a $40 million Texas roster and a $27 million Alabama roster, and by the way, that's probably not an accurate number. Alabama's probably 40. That's where you better have a roster that's 20 million plus.
Yeah.
And maybe more than that. And that's where the concern, I think, comes in, again, for all of college football, because Utah, the coaching staff at Utah is among the best in the country. The player development model and resume at Utah is among the best in the country. And now the ask is, yeah, you have to have those things, but you also have to have some of the best NIL funds in the country. Texas has always had the funds. There were many years, there were 2 decades where Texas didn't have the right recipe of coaches and player evaluation and talent development. They didn't have that. And now they do. And now it's real scary because they're a juggernaut with all the money to go behind it, right? Texas A&M still doesn't have the right mix. They got all the money you need. They still don't have the right mix. So money by itself is not enough. But money plus the right coach. Money plus the right recruiting system. Money plus the right talent development, weight room, coaching staff, etc. That becomes scary when there's a single $40 million roster in college football. It's the one everyone's going to look at and be like, okay, well, yikes. I don't think that Texas is alone, though.
Yeah, I don't think so either. It's just the one that's being reported right now. Like, you think about Ohio State, they were reported to be only compared to this Texas number, only anyway, around 20 million. They've upped that, right? They had to have upped that.
It's a $30 million prospect. Ryan Day has been pretty public about the fact that it's he said 20, 30 million bucks. 20, 30 million, that's a massive jump between them, and to just kind of casually throw it out there. But that's what coaches have to do these days.
Yeah.
They can't zero in on a real number sometimes. And by the way, Ryan Day, like I think it was 3 years ago, said it was $15 million.
Right. Like that number's going up year to year, and it probably always will because there's no salary cap and inflation. And the longer this goes, the more high school players are going to say, I'm worth. Just because there's no rules to say that they can't ask for more. So
yeah, I mean, if Arizona State is paying their quarterback $3 million, what is, Arch Manning is making $6 million.
Yeah,
and now there are whole rosters of college football teams that don't have $6 million to give to the team, much less to one individual player.
And we're not just talking about Group of 5 when we say that. In the Power 4, there's schools that aren't paying that much for a whole team. Yeah.
So I put the poll question out there. Texas roster is expected to cost between $35 and $40 million this coming season. How much money will it take for Utah, BYU, whoever, to realistically compete with that in a one-game college football playoff scenario? Let's just say go beat Texas. You make it to the first round of the playoff. Your matchup is the Longhorns. Go beat Texas. What would that roster really cost, do you think, James? I said the same number, 30, 40 million. That's what Texas is allegedly dealing with. 20, 30 million, a tier lower. 10 to 20 million, even lower than that. Or you can't compete, give up now.
I think I think you were dead on. I think we were both dead on earlier. Somewhere in the teens, you can compete against one of these teams in a one and maybe beat them in a one-game playoff scenario. Like I said, I think ASU proved that last year, even though they did lose to Texas in the playoff.
I mean, Boise State made it to the playoff without a $20 million roster.
Yeah,
okay?
it's a little bit different because the best group of 5 team is guaranteed.
Yes.
So you're going to have a team in the playoff, at least one team in the playoff every year that has probably less than $10 million on their payroll. It's probably the highest ranked group.
And getting there is great, but you're right. What we're talking about is competing. And Arizona State didn't win, but showed they can compete. And that's really, I mean, it's not what you're going for. You're not going for the we competed, we gave it a good college try. You're going for the win.
Yeah,
I mean, a
real
ball
victory is not moral victories.
A ball bounces one way different in that game, though, and it's a win. And so I'll use the moral victory as a measuring stick here. Now, if you beat Texas, then do you win the next one?
Yeah,
maybe not.
That's what I was going to get to. I think you have to be probably in that, and you said this before, you have to probably be at least a $20 million payroll, for lack of a better term, to probably win multiple playoff games, because it's not like you just said, it's not just Texas that is going to be paying that much money for their roster that's going to be in the playoff, that's going to be a higher ranked team than you.
And then
the next round's Alabama, the next round's Ohio State. Like, you got to be able to beat those $30 to $40 million rosters too.
But then the question becomes, does Utah have that? And probably a less relevant question here on the home of the Utes, but one that you should be paying attention to, is BYU spending that? And if those answers are not a clear yes, then the conversation changes about expectation for winning a national championship at least. People get mad at me when I say this. I'm not convinced that the national championship is a realistic goal for Utah or for BYU or for or for Arizona State, for Texas Tech. I don't think that anyone outside of the SEC or Big Ten is going to be a national champion anytime soon.
Throw Notre Dame in there too, because
Notre Dame also they count.
They count, even though they're not in a conference. They're in that same club.
Clemson, maybe. I still don't know, because I don't think Dabo does everything the right. But
yeah,
I mean, it's a tired conversation when you just say, well, money equals success. But now, if this is being put out there by reliable sources, and it is, now everyone is looking at it and going, 35 to 40 million? That's what I have to get to? And that's why everyone is looking for that billionaire donor. Because 35 to 40 million for a billionaire donor who's passionate about the athletics, that's nothing.
Yeah,
35 to 40 million dollars is something that they can part with and not cry about if you don't get the results right away. But they just don't grow on trees, and most of them are not fanatic about college athletics.
Yeah, their Phil Knights do not grow on trees.
Anyway, thought that was an interesting number that I saw this morning. We're going to give away some golf. It's indoor golf. It's a little bit different than the 18 holes or the 9 holes that we've been giving away. But the Hive Indoor Golf is hooking you up, courtesy of the Festival of Tees and the Utah Golf Association. Little trivia question coming your way. We'll give that away next to close out the show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Utah Golf Association, First Tee Utah, the Festival of Tees, Mountain America Credit Union hooking you up with some golf. 877-353-0700. If you can answer a simple trivia question. The Boston Celtics made how many three-point shots in a loss to the New York Knicks last night? Knicks battled back from down 20. An historically bad three-point shooting night for the Boston Celtics. But how many did they make? Because they still made a decent amount. It's just the number they missed that was insane. 877-353-0700. Time for a little crosstalk with Spence Checketts, host of The Drive, brought to you by Burt Brothers. Burt Brothers does it better. Yep. Duet.
Yeah, nailed it.
Duets.
Nailed it.
All right, Spence, I am vastly conspiratorial. I believe that the Utah Hockey Club moving up 10 spots in the draft lottery means that lightning will not strike twice and the Utah Jazz will be punished. You're a much more logical individual, so tell me that's not going to be the case.
Well, I can't tell you that because the logic says a 14% chance of moving up. I did find it because we were watching the lottery live in the 5 o'clock hour of the show last night. And so I was trying to digest it in real time. And when I saw that they didn't get number one, I'm like, oh, they're drafting at 14. And I'm like, wait a second. That's not how that works.
Right. They weren't. They couldn't have got number one. Yeah.
Correct. So, but I'm kind of digesting this in real time while trying to do the show. And then I see like, oh, wait, if number 3 pops up, they move all the way up to 4. And then boom, 3 popped up. And I'm like, oh, my gosh. Like, in 1 year of existence, the Utah Hockey Club has had more luck than the Utah Jazz have had in 50 freaking years. So, look, this gives Bill Armstrong and their presser. We're going to play some of the Bill's sound today. This gives him so many options to really expedite the growth of this roster that has so much promise and potential already. I mean, if you're a fan of this Utah Hockey Club, Tusks up, hashtag, you should be very excited about this offseason now.
Yeah, I agree. And I know that the logical perspective is that the two things don't affect one another.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I should be more optimistic like James and say, hey, this is a sign that, the sports gods are smiling upon Salt Lake City. So now you're going to get 2 good things happening in the space of 1 week. I'm more of a skeptic to that. But.
Is James an optimist? Is James an eternal? You know what? He kind of strikes me as an optimistic young fella. He's not old enough to realize life is bleep wall to wall. He'll get that as he ages. Are you an optimist?
I try to be.
I like that.
I'm
James.
Probably more of a realist in the middle than anything else, but I try to be optimistic, and I'm just jonesing as you are, Spence, as someone, both of us, Sean too. We grew up as lifelong Jazz fans. I'm jonesing for something like this to finally happen for the Jazz.
Sure.
And I'm not going to put anything negative, skeptical thoughts out there about it.
And it's been tough. I mean, you interview NBA guys over the past couple of years. Some of the NBA guests we have, I'll be like, hey, let's do some Jazz. And they're like, what do you want me to tell you about the Jazz? Because these national guys are not paying attention to our team at all. Cooper Flagg comes here, and instantly the Jazz are a story. Even if they're not good, because they're not going to be good next year no matter what, okay? It's not going to happen. But Cooper Flagg makes the Jazz interesting. That makes a lot of people stand up and pay attention, which is nice for people that do the jobs that we do.
Did you hear my fun fact when I compared the Jazz Glory Days version of playoff basketball to the Knicks-Celtics shooting debacle for Boston?
I did not. I'd love to hear you unpack it now.
We talked about it with Gordy. For whatever reason, I saw that 45 missed three-pointers by Boston.
Yeah.
I was like, that's just a ridiculous number of attempts, much less misses.
Yep.
And I said, we know this. Basketball's changed so much. I said, I'm going to look back and see. I'm gonna find a comparable series from the past, and I'm going to see how many three-point shots were taken by the losing team in that game.
Uh-huh.
So I went back to 1998. Second-round series, Jazz-Spurs. Game 1, the equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
How many three-point shots do you think the Spurs took? And this is not a three-point shooting roster. This is Tim Duncan and David Robinson in the same starting lineup. So, it skews that somewhat. But in a first round or a second round game 1, how many three-point shots do you think the Spurs attempted in game 1 loss to the Utah Jazz?
This is such a good question. I'm going to say 10.
It was 5. And then I looked at the rest of the series, And the largest number of three-point shots attempted, again, not made, attempted by either team in that second-round Western Conference Series in 1998 was 16 attempts, was the most.
Was it the Jazz?
No, it was actually the Spurs.
It was the Spurs.
Spurs in Game 2 went 5 of 16. The Jazz capped out at 13 attempts, I think.
Yeah, man, it is wild. Last night, the number one three-point stat from last night to me to indicate just how married Boston is to this style. And by the way, this style has allowed them to win a championship, and I think they're going to win it again this year, is my opinion. Even though I would love to see the Knicks do it, last night was a little bit of a fool's gold. After they went up 20 in the third quarter, the next 10 possessions, they shot a three. You're up 20, and the next 10 possessions, they shot a three. It is beyond comprehension, but it's just what they do, and their 5-out set and the way that they've executed for a couple of years now has made them historically good. So the wailing and gnashing of teeth about the way the game has changed, sometimes I can get into it a little bit, and last night was an L for the analytical community. All the goobs, all the nerds that cover basketball with calculators, you took L's last night. It wasn't just the Celtics chucking up threes. It was Mark Daigneault deciding to foul up three with like 12 seconds left, which is way too much time. And then Denver, that was a soul-stealing win by Denver last night, dude. Like, if you're OKC, you thought you had that in the bag, and you did until the very last second. So L's for the analytical community, which I kind of like, because sometimes the goobs who cover basketball are a little bit irritating, even though they're very smart people. A lot of them run teams now. Shout out to Andy Larson.
Hey, whoa.
No, Andy is a self-proclaimed nerd, and he's a very smart nerd.
Yeah, he's a math major.
Yeah.
He was on the show today and gave us some great perspective on some things.
For sure.
Are you proud of your guy, Russell Westbrook, for
Hold on.
making the pass?
Start over. Not my guy at all. I've said for years you can have that dude for free. I wouldn't trade a printer for him. But he did make the right basketball play. Jokic, dude, like, I don't know, man. I don't know that I've ever seen anything like him. He looks like his diet is Pringles and Bud Light, and he just dominates the game. 40, 20, and 5. Only 4 players have done that. For years and years and years, I wondered, will we ever see a player that actually is on the same list as Wilt? Because every time it's like, hey, the most points and rebounds in NBA, it's Wilt. He's doing this. Like, we're in the midst of generational greatness. And if I'm OKC, I'm sweating a little bit after what we saw last night.
What would it be like if he actually enjoyed basketball?
Scary. Like, if he cared to be in shape.
If he actually loved to play basketball and had like the I don't know, the Kobe Bryant married to the game sort of mentality.
It would be scary.
Instead of like I only do this so I can buy horses.
Right. Or take care of himself when he's not playing, like show up in shape, for fall camp. It would be terrifying. It's already scary what he does.
That's wild. Anyway, stay tuned for The Drive with Spence Checketts. It's going to be a great show today. I can just tell by the energy Spence is bringing to Crosstalk. Thanks for listening today. Thanks for everyone who joined us. Let's do it again tomorrow on the Sean O'Connell Show.